6 at 6 o'clock, and we are opening up with our working sessions, briefings and presentations. So the first thing on the agenda is to go through, let's see, we're going to have a discussion on the agenda items, and Mr. Hudson, you can take care of that for us, please?
Yes, sir. Mayor and Council, tonight we'll brief the consent agenda.
Let me interrupt.
Oh, sorry.
The email that Mr. Hugman sent out with my suggestion in order for us to help optimize our time in City Council is to take care of those consent items, brief those in here, but leave the items for individual consideration for debate out there, which is where they ought to be. And so questions that you have on consent items, we cover it here. And then very, very briefly, if necessary, we can cover some stuff on the individual consideration items in here as well. But that ought to be saved for out there. So this ought to optimize our time, take care of business in here, and as well take care of business out there. Okay? Thank you. Go ahead.
Mayor and Council, tonight on the consent agenda, item 4A are the minutes from the June 24th joint meeting with the DCEDC, the July 16th budget workshop meeting, July 16th regular council meeting, July 22nd special meeting, and July 22nd joint meeting with planning and zoning. Are there any questions or concerns on the minutes? Item 4B is a resolution authorizing a 3-year engagement for auditing with McConnell and Jones LLP. This is a 3-year term engagement with an annual amount of $42,000 per year, so a total of $126,000. It's been the city's practice to change audit firms at least every 5 years, and we just finished a 5-year engagement with Patillo Brown and Hill, so the city sent out RFPs for auditing services. We had 344 vendors that it was sent to, including 96 historically underutilized businesses or hubs, and 40 vendors accessed the documents. We received 7 RFPs or proposals, and staff reviewed those, selected 2 firms based on a scoring criteria to further interview, and that firm is McConnell and Jones LLP. The partner that would be handling the audit is Mr. Marlon Williams, who has over 22 years of experience, including having audited Duncanville in previous engagements with other firms. This firm also has an understanding of Tyler Munis, which is our financial software system, and they are also registered with the state of Texas as a historically underutilized business. Staff took this recommendation to the audit committee, and the audit committee did vote to recommend this contract with McConnell and Jones as well.
Is the price in line with what we've had in the past, considering just some inflationary increases?
The price is actually lower than our previous engagement. It was total $132,000 for the 3 years, so it's actually a little bit lower.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Item 4C is a resolution authorizing a 3-year, 4C is a resolution approving an economic development performance agreement for a property enhancement grant to Palio Partners, and this is in an amount up to 70% of the actual cost, not to exceed $22,426. So the DCEDC has different grants available, including grants for demolition and rebuild, and that's what this grant request was. Palio Partners purchased the old Chase Bank building on Cedar Ridge. They've been trying to get tenants into that. They want to demolish a portion of that building in order to attract more desirable tenants. They would remove the drive-through portion of that old bank building. There were some pictures in your packet, including some renderings of what it would look like. The DCEDC board did vote to recommend approval of this, not to exceed $22,426.
Why is this on the consent agenda?
I want to pull it from the consent.
To a request that we put it on the regular agenda.
What are they planning on doing with that?
What do you mean? they're planning to remodel it and remove the drive-through portion and
Well, I got
refurbish the
that part, but I
outside.
mean,
They're seeking tenants for the building.
they're doing all this stuff, using the money and wanting to redo it. But they don't have any tenants or any idea what they're,
Well, the applicant is here, so you can ask the applicant those questions then during the regular
Fine.
session. Item 4D is a resolution also authorizing an economic development performance agreement grant for property enhancement grant to Russell Glenn Company, an amount up to 70% of the actual cost not to exceed $157,261. This is for the old Dickey's Barbecue. The company that has purchased it is also trying to attract some tenants, and they have asked for a demolition rebuild grant to demolish a portion of that building, being the old smoker portion of the building, and also to reorient the front of the building to face the highway and add a drive-through to the north side of the building. The DCEC considered this request as well. They did provide their 3 different quotes per category, and in accordance with the policy, the DCEC has approved up to 70% of the lowest quotes, and this is a total amount not to exceed $157,261.
And that's with no tenant also?
Again, the applicant is here tonight, can answer those questions. I believe they do have one tenant.
Oh, I'd
lined
like
up.
to put that on a regular agenda also. We'll find out who the tenant is, and we'll find out up there. You don't know who it is.
they know who it is. You can talk to them up there.
Item 4E is a resolution to authorize a bid for water and wastewater utility improvements on High Ridge Drive. This is in an amount, estimated expenditure amount of $630,606. This will replace water and wastewater pipe along High Ridge and Greenbrier Estates. And it will upgrade existing 6-inch iron pipe and 6-inch clay wastewater pipes to 8-inch PVC water mains and 8-inch HDPE wastewater. This is in the bids were sent to 54 vendors, and including email notices to 121 hubs. We received 2 bids, and the lowest responsive bid was for Douglas Daily Construction. We have not used them in the past, but their references have been positive. This amount is allocated in the Utilities Capital Improvements Project Fund. Item 4F is a resolution authorizing an award of bid for water and wastewater improvements in the Forest Hills Addition or South Alexander Avenue to FM Utilities LLC. This is an estimated expenditure of $644,047. Again, this will replace water and wastewater pipeline along South Alexander and Forest Hills. The existing water and wastewater lines were installed in the 1950s and 60s and are in need of replacement. This will also upgrade 6-inch pipe to 8-inch. This was sent to the same vendors as the previous one, so 53 vendors on public purchase and 121 hubs were emailed. We received 6 bids on this project, and the lowest responsible bidder was FM Utilities. Again, the city has not used FM Utilities in the past, but the references were positive. This project is also budgeted in the FY19 Utility Fund Capital Improvements Project Fund.
Hey Kevin, you've not used them. What references, when you check the references, anybody around here used them already?
I'll defer to Mr. Raymond.
Yeah, I don't know which particular references. I know that our graduate engineer, John McLean, called the references that were on their bid, and then that's how we checked them out. I don't know which, I'd have to go back and look at their application, their bid itself, for whom they actually used in the past. I don't know that off the top of my head.
Thank you for diversifying, using different ones versus our same ones again, so thank you guys for reaching out.
Item 4G is a resolution authorizing an application for a Safe Routes to School grant. We made a preliminary application to TxDOT for their Safe Routes to School call for projects. And we were notified that our preliminary application will be submitted through the process, so we need the council approval to apply for the grant. There are 3 different projects that we submitted. Citywide crosswalk enhancements for $209,240. Sidewalks, construction through parks, $244,750. And sidewalks in the Green Hills subdivision, $739,200. There is no required match on these projects. However, as part of our application, we did offer to provide $1,000 per project. So again, it depends on what is approved. If we get the grant, it would be $1,000 for whichever, or multiple projects that they approve in the grant funding.
Why do we do that?
Why did we do?
Yeah, if they're not requiring any money, why do we throw 3,000 out?
We just put $1,000 per project, and it's just to help in the application to show that we're serious and committed to the project.
Earnest money.
They didn't require any, and it's taxpayer money.
It's a small amount of money if we can get this, which is over $1 million. And so if it helps us get points because it shows that we're interested and that we are committed to the project, then I think it's worth $1,000.
I agree.
If you think it gets points,
They score the projects, the applications. And so for us to have made it to the next round, obviously we scored high enough to get into that next round. So if that's what helped us get to that next round, that's a very small to get that kind of money per project.
well, it sounds like to me what you're talking about is a bribe. If you
No.
think that
Point of
money,
order.
No, it's earnest money, and there's nothing concerning the project.
they didn't ask for money, but we gave it to them. Have we ever
Mr.
done that
Ramey,
before?
is it SOP to offer some kind of,
We wanted, our intent, sir, was to put in some money. So yes, we figured there would be
they
something.
don't, I mean, in their documentation, they do not require.
They do not
say anything
require
about it.
money, but what we didn't want to do is when they apply whatever, their algorithms is lose any points for not having any money.
So they look for some commitment.
We made that assumption that they would going to, yes.
In your experience, is that assumption valid?
This is my first.
I see you're nodding.
Oh.
And I know you've done grant applications. Yeah,
Yes.
that's a pretty normal part of the process, is to
Generally
look for city match.
It's SOP. Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Those are all of the items on the consent agenda. If there are any specific questions for staff on the items for individual consideration, we'll be happy to answer.
Okay, moving on, then we have a discussion and input regarding single-family rental registration ordinance.
Oh, I'm sorry, excuse me, Mayor, I forgot to mention one thing too. On your individual items for consideration, Steve Martin did contact staff today and said he would not be able to be at the meeting tonight. He's not feeling well. So he had asked specifically to table the Chambers hotel occupancy tax grant request. He did not ask to table the Sandra Meadows one. So I guess that's up to council if you want to consider both at the same time, or if you want to still get the staff presentation on the Sandra Meadows and consider it.
And where are the other,
They are coming the next meeting. They were not able to make tonight's meeting, so they will be scheduled on August 20th.
the other applicants? And I wanted to ask you too about the auto used car lot.
The SUP for the Avis car rental.
Oh,
car
I'm
rental.
sorry, Avis, it wasn't used car. Do you have to do 15 years?
No, ma'am, the P&Z actually recommended no time limit on the SUP, since they've been there for 15 years already.
Okay. And so then it can come up at any time, if there's no limit.
The council can always initiate changes anytime it desires.
So who's going to present for Sandra Meadows if it's not Steve, do we know?
Jessica will present the staff pool part of it and brief you on their request. request, but we would not be able to answer any specific questions that you might have for the applicant.
Is that gonna happen before the next meeting, Sandra Meadows?
No.
Well, then why don't we
Usually in
just do them
December.
all?
It's usually in December.
I know, but I'm just saying, if we're gonna have
That's up to you.
the other applicants at the next meeting,
Since it's Mr. Martin's, both of these are Mr. Martin's items, that would be best if you were here for both of them. So I would recommend we
If
table, remove, what's the proper terminology for
postpone.
C and D?
Postpone.
Postpone. Okay, we are postponing items 5, C, and D based on the applicants not being able to be present.
I thought that other one was used cars, when I read it, it was safe, so I thought, I was ready to,
I had to do
we
this.
don't want any more used cars.
I had to do the same thing.
I know.
Yeah, when Ava's popped off the page.
I was like, okay.
We got it. Okay.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Okay. All right.
Mayor, members of council, I'm here tonight to provide an update on our rental registration program. As you may recall, well, you may not, some of you members may not recall that this ordinance basically went into effect January 1. It was adopted October of last year. It meets 2 of our council capstones, creating high-quality neighborhoods and parks, and also becomes also a best practice organization. And in order to maximize city and community resources and improve the quality of life. And this was a work plan item for FY18 and was also identified in the comprehensive plan and was recommended by the Neighborhood Vitality Commission. So just quick, the basics. We wanted to be able to identify some standard deteriorated rental housing stock within the city, obtain current or obtain property information for each of those properties that can be used by code enforcement and also for emergency situations. We want to be able to enhance partnership communication, which we've done, and also aid in basically, I think the important part of this would be aid in housing stock preservation, maintenance and upgrades for those rental properties. This will help facilitate neighborhood stabilization, foster clean and safe rental properties, and trying not to diminish the availability and affordability. And then lastly, safeguard life, health, safety, welfare of property, and the property and for the occupants as well by enforcing these minimum standards. So our early assumptions, when we start talking about the program itself, Duncanville has a little over 13,000 housing units. Of those are 12,245 single family. And then because we included duplex and townhomes in that calculus, we estimate, at least at the time, that there's about 2,788 rentals. And I might mention too, when we did the when we did the scrub of the list, basically taking what we had in our utility billing software system and then looking at the DCAD records, we came out with little around 2,300 rentals. So it was fairly close as far as that estimate on the rentals that we have within Duncanville. And again, as we mentioned, this ordinance regulates these 3 types of housing units. So just a real quick refresher, it requires that all those types of residential units be registered with the city. There's a $25 annual registration fee. That fee basically pays for a staff member who helps organize and run the program. The requirement also includes that each rental property would have what we call a rental certificate of occupancy, closely resembling what you would see for a commercial property. So each commercial property has to have a CO that goes through an inspection process, make sure that that commercial property meets minimum building codes and standards. Again, as we've talked about before, with the rental registration, with rental properties are being used for business purposes. So that is, I think, a very close parallel when you look at those 2 things. They must have a city inspection. I'll talk a little bit later about some changes that we have made or some minor modifications based on some input we received. But they must receive a city inspection.
that's $100, and then if they have to have a re-inspection, it's another $100. And why is that cost? Why is the cost $100? I will tell you, when you look at the other Metroplex cities, that is the highest charge that is out there as far as inspection program. And the main reason for that is some council members may recall we wanted to get this kick started very quickly. So we engaged a third-party inspection company, Bureau Veritas. So this is the pass-through charge. This is what they charge. There have been instances where we've used staff to go out there to help expedite inspections, and that's because it's been based on requests. So from a customer service standpoint, I know one of the comments that was made was that, well, you know, we were promised that you'd have a third-party inspector going out there and doing that. Well, we tried to accommodate some of those properties in order for them to get the renter in the property. So we went out there and made that inspection. And I'll talk about what we want to do as far as trying to change that and bring that back in-house. The ordinance includes that the inspection needs to occur in 2 years or a change of tenant. So when the tenant changes, we would ask for an inspection so that we go in there and look at the property while it's not occupied. The inspection process is it's twofold. It's an interior inspection and an exterior inspection. And then, of course, the aspects of those inspections include anything contained within the ordinance, anything in the International Property Maintenance Code, International Residential Code, any other applicable state laws or local laws, regulations, or ordinances. One other, I think, important part of this is that we do not issue an RCO until taxes or liens or any of the outstanding utility charges have been collected. And we've had a couple of instances where we've had liens when they come up to register, and we find that they have liens on that property from some past code enforcement abatement. So we require them to make the city whole on those charges. One of the other things, and I know that's this first bullet is a provision that we did put in there that requires the notification to the city if there is going to be an eviction. And the reason that we include that is because from experience, we've had a number of instances within recent time where we've had evictions, all the stuff is thrown out on the front lawn, and instantly we're getting complaints from the neighbors because the wind's blowing or people are stopping by and collecting those things that are in the front of the yard. So if we can be made aware of it, then that helps us as far as the process of then putting them on notice and then getting it cleaned up. Our own Greg Ramey even had to do it himself personally because of the nature of how bad that was. And so we asked for them to give us that heads up. Just want to give him
Was that
full
pleasant?
mention.
No.
Did you find anything
Too old
good?
to do that stuff.
You heard he's wearing.
You heard it all.
That's right.
I can't think of a more attractive person to do that.
I would agree with you as well.
That was a cold day, too.
That was good.
It was cold. It's better than being hot.
One of the other things is obviously if the failure to register proper. So if we know that you're a rental and you have failed to register with us after we provided notification, it is a Class C misdemeanor, up to a fine up to $2,000. We have not had to trigger that. We've not had to use that, I'm happy to say. However, we do have a few properties that are now coming up that they are rentals and that they are not registering. We know they're rentals because we have neighbors that are telling us, and we're getting the adequate information. We'll probably be pursuing those properties, and they have other issues as well. What this also does is establish a maximum occupancy. So contained within the residential property code, when they come in and register the property, based on the square footage of the house, it tells us how many persons should be in that house. That's another thing that we do here commonly here, is at least the complaining way, and not all of those are valid, that there are too many people in a residential property. And on the rental side of things, at least it sets at the time of the application, that individual's telling us this is the number of people that will be in this house that can be allowed in the house by the residential property code. And then finally, I think really important here is now we have the property manager information. We didn't have that before because when you go to look to scrub the list, if you will, The information we have from UB, and then again, comparing it to the DCAB records, we don't have property manager information. We have that now, and it's been very beneficial. And a lot of the property managers that we're working with have worked well with us in helping us move through this program.
Have we found any managers or owners that are not within the COG?
We have not. I think for the most part, a lot of them are local. I'm not aware of any that have come and tried to apply that are outside the COG region. And the COG region is 16 counties, so
Yeah,
fairly good size county. But this is, and the reason for this too, Mayor, is those kind of distant. It's really, it hurts us when we're having to deal with somebody in some faraway state.
But
Trying to get them to
have you
maintain.
found
it.
any out of state?
Yeah, we have not as far as the rental registration program. I know on our vacant building, I think we may have had one or so, but.
Yeah.
Is there a benefit for residents who live in Duncanville and also rent homes in Duncanville?
So the resident basically would live here on their home and then also rent a property?
Yes.
I don't know if there's a benefit per se. It helps them, at least I think, from a standpoint of they're closer to their property, so they should know the condition of their property and help maintain it, I think, a little bit better.
Yeah, those, I did get some complaints on those. They own the property and live in Duncanville, but I'll let you go.
Would they prefer not to have that, I guess, to
I
understand?
think it was the registration fee they were really complaining about.
Okay, yeah, let me see if I address that question as we go further on, because I know that is something that we've heard as far as the registration fee is concerned. And let me just, again, just reiterate, we're looking for unsafe structures, property sanitation. We do look at sidewalks, driveways, accessory structures. I mean, we're getting a better look on what the situation is or what the status of that particular property is. Pools, hot tubs, infestation issues. There was I don't know if you saw in the city manager's message or newsletter, we linked in articles on Channel 5. We had someone that had to move out of their house. They had mold issues in their rental property. I don't know if anybody had a chance to see that. It was a very unfortunate circumstance where they had mold in their property. Now, that would be something we'd look for. It depends on how bad it is. And I'll talk about some automatic fails as we go further. But those are the kinds of things that, again, that we would theoretically catch if we were when we were going inside the house and within the property. Water, plumbing system, sanitary system, mechanical, electrical, and fire hazards are all the things that we're looking for and inspecting for. And again, our third-party inspector here at River Top. So as of yesterday, we have about 614 properties registered. We've had 317 of those inspected. Pretty even pass-fail on that. 168 have passed, 149 have failed. I would say the number of fails have been going down dramatically because we're giving them information and saying, this is exactly what we're looking for. Our aim is not to surprise anybody. Our aim is to say, full disclosure, these are the things we're looking for. These are automatic fails. These are other things that we're looking for that we'll bring to your attention if they're a violation of the code. Again, I think one of the complaints, and we'll talk about this later on, is the fact that if they do fail, they do have to pay an additional $100 fee because that's the cost for Bureau Veritas to go out and re-inspect the property. We have 9 in the queue, and so we've issued 206 certificates. We have others that have been inspected that we're trying to get a hold of to say, okay, it's time to come pick up your certificate of occupancy. So that's why you kind of see some of the variation in the numbers. And then we've had 65 units that have taken us up on the inspection deferrals, and that's addressing another complaint that we received as far as having the tenants in there, and we've addressed that with what we call a waiver. That gives them a 2-year waiver, so if they've got a property owner in there, it gives them time. So if they move out or change leases, it gives them a little bit more time also to make repairs, which is what we want to do to fix the property. So let's talk about the automatic fails. So we're really, when we're talking about this orders, we're looking for what concerns us or the life safety issues in the inspection, as part of the inspection process. And so we are up front, I'll show you more kind of examples. So here are the basically the 5 fails. No vacuum breakers on the hose bib, no GF5 protection, no smoke or carbon monoxide detectors throughout the house. Again, we talked about before, we treat this as commercial property, just like you'd have in a motel or any other commercial property. You have those kind of life safety issues. Water heater temperature pressure relief valve, especially, and then no combustion air for fuel burning appliance closets. And all of these, for the most part, are not expensive fixes. So for example, a no vacuum breaker, this prevents backflow. You would put this on each of your faucets. Here, the cost on that, for example, memorized, these are about $6 a piece. GFI protection, they're not switches, but they're protection that would be installed near bathtubs, shower stalls, anywhere where you may have water that could make contact with the plug. Those are about $10 per outlet.
Just for clarification, the owners, managers, et cetera, are given a list of what we're looking for before we actually do the inspection? Or
Yes, we give them all the information. We have a spreadsheet, and then we have not only the spreadsheet of the common things that we're looking for that we'll identify, but we also give them the basically what you're seeing here. We give them this information basically that just shows the pictures of what we're looking for, those 5 common fails. So they're given that ahead of time. So what we're trying to do is we want you to go out and fix it
before we get there.
Yes. Before you schedule inspection, here's the list, here are the things we're looking for. Please address those, then call and schedule time for us to come out there and take a look at it. Because we don't want to, again, we just want the compliance. We're really what we're aiming for. But when we say no fails, if we go in there and these haven't been addressed, they will fail that inspection, even for these 5. If we note other things, we will note them in the inspection report and ask for them to have them addressed, depending on the severity of it, a certain time frame for them to make those repairs. But these will be automatic fails.
A GFO protection, does that mean any outlet in a bathroom?
Usually, any outlets within so many feet of a water source, but a lot of times those outlets are on one circuit. So if you've got a GFCI on one plug, you're probably protecting the whole circuit. That's why you probably don't see one on every outlet in your bathroom, but they're all on the same circuit, so they're protected.
Put it in kitchens.
Yeah, kitchens, bathrooms. Smoke alarms, as you know, can be $10 to $15 for purchase install. And then carbon monoxide detector, again, that can be up to $20 for one of those to be installed. TNP valve, the cost will vary on this. You'll want a plumber to come in and make those kind of repairs. But this basically regulates pressure for the hot water heater. This can cause severe damage and injury or death.
Does that repair require a permit to be pulled?
On this one, it does.
Water heaters are
This is
have to be
plumbing.
installed by a plumber,
You need a
licensed plumber with a permit.
How many of our residents know that it's called a plumber to do this kind of work? You got to come into the city hall and pull a permit.
I think most, well, what you're relying on is the plumber. The plumber will know. The plumber knows that each jurisdiction is going to require them to come in and pull a permit, and to especially effective repair like this or any kind of plumbing repair. So they know that they have to come in and get that. If they're above board, legitimate plumbers that are doing the right thing, if they're DIY or whatever, do yourself, then perhaps not. And then this is another one, there's no combustion air, fuel burning appliance and closets that do not have ventilation. So here again, we show the diagram here, what we would expect if you don't have ventilation in an enclosed space. So one of the things, we did hear, I think it was back in February, March, we had a number of the property managers that came out and did visit with staff. To say that they were not happy or thrilled, I think fair. But understandably that, we wouldn't know exactly what their relationship was with that particular house. But they did have a lot of good input, and they did provide us input as far as like our forms. I know the fee was an issue for them. The issue with if they have a tenant in there and having us go in and do inspection while the tenant's in there, which is also legitimate because you really, the best time to inspect the house, to be honest, is when it's vacant, so you can get a better look and get a better inspection process. So based on that feedback, and again, I will say I thought we had some very good feedback from them. We've done a number of things. We've updated the rental registration forms. Let me just say that we've edited the forms. We were requiring driver's license. We don't require that, and as far as also mortgage information, we don't need that. We just need the owner information. So I'm not suggesting that the form that we change is we're not getting the information we need. We are getting the information that we need, but we're able to make those adjustments to the form. That was one of the inputs that we received from some of the property managers. We also updated the certificate of occupancy application. Again, those we include the addition of the signatory statement from the tenant. So if they were going to have the inspection of the property, we didn't want the tenant acknowledging that inspection. So if we were to go in there and say, it's fine, we want you to go in there and inspect the property, we want the tenant to be aware that we're coming in there to inspect the property as well. One of the things though too, when it is a occupied, I will mention this as an aside, if it is an occupied structure with a tenant in there, it is a little more difficult because if you're relying on the tenant to be there and the time frame, and I'll get to that too, as far as the inspection process, is a little bit more problematic in trying to arrange the inspection. And that leads to the consent form as well from the tenant on the third bullet. In order for them to get the RCO, they must pass the inspection. It will not be issued if it does not. However, we've instituted the deferred inspection waiver. Mary, it goes back to your question about the information. So we're basically saying, look, here's the information, here's what we're looking for, here's what we want you to fix, especially if they have a tenant in the house. We will let them sign. They still have to register. So they register the property, so we have that on our list. But we ask them to fill out a waiver so they can have up to 2 years to defer the inspection. That gives them 2 years to make the repair. And or if the tenant moves out in between that time. So if the tenant moves out before that 2 years, then we would ask them to schedule inspection. But otherwise, I think this addresses one of the things that we did hear loud and clear, which is, have got people in there, they've been in there, you're coming in as an intrusion issue, even though, again, we have, as part of the inspection, everybody has rental, we have a number of rental registration orders out there. This, I think, addresses that issue, that complaint that we've heard.
And you go back to re-inspect once it's done. I heard that right.
So what we do is they come in, register the property, and then we ask, are you ready for an inspection? And they said, no, I want to waive that for 2 years or until the tenant moves. So we will have them on the registration, but we'll wait until they then schedule that time to inspect. So at the end of 2 years, if they haven't gone back and asked for inspection, we'll follow back up with them and say, your 2 years is up, your 2 years is up, and it's time to schedule inspection.
What's our liability in this and all? Do we have any? From a legal standpoint, even from, you're saying no?
No.
So if you told me you inspected my house and later on my house had an issue because of one of the days it burned down, they can't sue the city?
Nope.
And why not?
Well, the same reason, because you have immunity. For the same reason that we have laws that speeding, and if you speed and I don't stop you and you hit someone, that's on you, not for stopping. Same kind of thing.
Okay.
And so what do they do though if they go out there and something that's not on this list is apparent?
If we catch it during a normal inspection, so let's just say that code enforcement's driving by, now we would not have gone inside the property, but if we're going by the property and we notice outside storage or high granite, we'll still enforce that. It wouldn't be part of the rental registration inspection. We would just see it.
No, I mean like, okay, let's say you go in and there's a hole in the roof.
We would note that in the inspection and ask for either.
Even though it's not on the list.
It would be something that they would have to repair. It's not on the automatic fail list, but it would be on our list of saying you've got to fix and patch these holes.
But would that be a fail?
No.
It may not be an automatic fail, but would it?
It wouldn't be a fail. It would be, we would follow back up to make sure that they had that.
Something.
Because in between, another hole could have appeared and so forth. And, you know, now, if it was an issue where they're missing the entire ceiling or something, if it was drastic, that might be another issue where we would then set up a timeline with them and say, this needs to be corrected pretty quick. But if, you know, what we'll see a lot of times are just, you know, holes in the wall or something like that. Those are more on the aesthetic, and we'll just say, hey, that needs to be fixed.
Oh,
But it
so
won't-
they have to also fix interior walls?
we asked them when we bring it up on the, yeah, it shows up in the inspection report, but that's not, again, we only have 5 automatic fails.
Something else is within the ordinance that allows the tenant to request the city to
That's
do
true.
inspection. So let's say we do the inspection, and then when we do the inspection, we'll say like the air conditioner works or the stove works or something like that. But then 6 months from now, it goes out, and then they're not fixing it or bringing it back up to standard, then they can request that the city do, the tenant can invite the city to do a re-inspection at no cost, and then so that we can then, you know, help get the property back into compliance.
Now, you may recall, I think I brought up an example, I can't give the exact address, it was on North Cedar Bridge, and it was a grandmother, and she was taking care of her daughter had passed away in a car wreck, and she was taking care of her grandkids. And the owner was not taking care of the air conditioning, so she didn't have air conditioning, and she wasn't making repairs to the house. It was really in deplorable condition. I think Hester, you may have been involved in that one as well. But those are the kinds of things that really, and again, I mentioned that story about the mold. Those are the kind of things that if we can help and identify those, at least help them get the owner to address those, certainly do that.
And so they know that they can contact you?
Correct me if I'm wrong, we've had some renters that have contacted us to ask us to do that inspection.
So this is a lot tougher than.
It's not Angelica.
This is
I'm
a
sorry,
lot-
Angelica's, let me apologize, Angelica's is sitting in for Kristen,
Okay.
our city secretary. She is in our code enforcement department, and she's office manager there, so she helps manage that program. So she sees a lot of this, so she's been instrumental in helping.
So this is a lot tougher than an owner-occupied house. So if I've got a busted up driveway and I'm an owner-occupant, or if there's cracks in it, then the next door neighbor's a rental property, then you come out and put the hammer down.
That's
on the
correct,
rental.
but I'll say this, as I mentioned before earlier, we're treating these like commercial. So same thing with a commercial, as a commercial owner, you have the higher, not I wouldn't say high, you have different standards as far as your maintenance and operation of the property. So this, from an estimation of treating this as a commercial property, I would say the standard is, I don't know if it's higher, we have the ability to go in and inspect just like with a commercial property now, when we go in and make an inspection of a commercial property. So if you have a tenant that changes out, we're coming back in for a CO inspection, not looking at these same exact things in the rental ordinance, but we can still be looking at building code items in there.
So to your point, Lonnie, it's like, once I saw that what was necessary, I went to my house and I checked around, and I was concerned if I had the GFICs in my bath anywhere within 6 feet of water. I'm going like, man, my house is out of code, they're gonna kill me. And so it educated me as a property owner, like you were saying, does everybody in this room who owns a home know what these instant fails are? I didn't. I knew that I needed vacuum breakers on my hose bit, and I knew that I needed GFIs, but I didn't know I needed everywhere I had a water line.
Answer your question, yes, it is. Is it?
So it's almost more stringent.
Just by the nature, but I think by the nature of the program, so.
One of the things that I would say, and I've mentioned this to a number of people who have complained about this, but I think if you look at it from the standpoint too, that in your own home, you know, or maybe aware of what you should have in there, but you're the one that's taking that risk if you choose not to do that. When you purchase a home, it's getting an inspection, and all of those things are noted. If you're living there, you're making that choice as to whether you want to do it or not. But in a rental home, it is a business, and you have a tenant now in there who is assuming that risk, and they may not know that they are assuming that risk, but you as the property owner are putting that risk on them because you choose not to have safety appliances like a smoke detector or carbon monoxide or those kinds of things. So I think that it is different. It is not the same as owner occupied. It is a business.
So how do you notify, everybody's got a residential rental has to come in and register? We pay a fee no matter what.
The newsletters we've been sending out, we have been also sending out notices in the mail. We've had to stop because we've had a backlog of inspections, but we've been sending out, and I think 200 mailer tranches of notices to property owners. We send them out to all the duplexes, all the townhomes, condos, so they've all received it. So we need to get back into that, but we had to kind of get caught up. But we did notify in the newsletters and so forth. But we're also slowly notifying.
I haven't seen the letter myself.
The newsletter, the city.
I mean, I don't read them.
Okay.
But I mean, if I
Yeah,
see-
but what, may I also mention, there's the other thing that what we've been doing, and I think people have heard some of the issues is, when they go sign up in utility billing, and even before this ordinance was enacted, they had to differentiate between whether this was an owner-occupied setup, building setup, or a rental setup. So at the window, if they don't have proof that it's at least been registered, they will send them back. I will make this clear, we do not prevent them from getting their water turned on. We do not do that. Utility billing does not do that. We don't do that. All we do is ask that if it is a rental, we just want to make sure that it's registered.
That's how you do it, through water,
That's one of the ways.
not
So-
through electric, not through electric.
No, we don't control
You
it.
do it like commercial, that's how you control the commercial.
Yeah, we just, what we do
If it's on
is,
central water, then it doesn't get, like an apartment.
when those times come that they're registering at the UB, we'll just ask that question. If we find that it's a rental property, is it registered in our program? Yes, no. If it's not, they go to the inspection
You
desk.
don't hold up your register.
Oh, we do not hold,
Meters or
our
anything.
intention is not to hold up water at all. We've heard a couple people say it, we do not hold up their.
You don't hold up moving in, moving in?
No.
You don't hold them up moving in?
No.
I will say this, I had, one of my daughter's friends was renting a house, and she was having problems with them because it said connections for washer dryer, and I can't remember if it was the washer or the dryer, but the connections didn't work. So I went over there to see her, and oh my gosh, they had wires draped all through the backyard. I don't know anything about code, and I could see it was horribly not in compliance. And so I tried to help her with the owner. and
How many of our other cities around us are doing this right now?
I had to get my
Dallas
folder, but
does.
there's a number, I can give it to you.
But does DeSoto, Cedar Hill?
Lancaster does it, I don't think Cedar Hill has it, but they're looking at it. I'm not sure DeSoto, as far as the best Southwest, but Dallas has it. Farmers Branch, Capel, Mesquite, because so, maybe a little half, give or take, as far as the Metroplex cities are concerned. Some have other variants. Arlington has just registered for duplex. However, in the Arlington case, if you have code enforcement issues and it's a rental, and you don't address them, then you can get popped on to the rental.
How often does an normal apartment get inspected? Does it, on a regular, does it get a regular
We
inspection?
inspect them once a year.
All of them?
Yes, we have, 16 or 17 apartment complexes in the city. We inspect them once a year.
You inspect every unit, every year?
No, ma'am. We inspect 10% of the,
Vacant.
well, we inspect 10% of the housing or the number of vacancies, whichever is greater. So if they have even if they have, say they have 100 apartments, we would expect 10, but we only inspect vacant units. So say they only have 8, 8 available, then we inspect the vacants. We don't inspect occupied, we inspect vacants.
So what if there's none vacant? What if there's nothing vacant? What do you do? I don't remember there being.
Well, we haven't had that
inspected at all.
happen yet. But then we would just wait for someone to complain, which we do have
We get calls.
tenants call in when their landlord is not taking care of the apartments as well.
And we've brought that in, that has been brought in-house, by the way. There was a time when we were doing that regularly, and we're doing that regularly.
Because I can think of an apartment complex in Duncanville that had 17 units that were out of compliance.
And we're incorporating. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Also, when we're
Jim's
doing
our
the apartment,
building
I'm the building official now. When we do the apartment inspections, We also deal with the managers, and we have a posted paper that gives the apartment renters the ability to call us for an inspection. So it's got to be posted in their common area, their mailboxes, where if we don't, get in a unit, because we have to have permission with a warrant to get in where somebody's living. So if we inspect the vacant ones, then all the tenants are notified that they are allowed to call us up and set up an inspection, and we'll come look at their apartment.
If they feel like that they're not being kept.
If they're not being kept up, if they have bug problems, they have mold problems, we go out and look at those apartments. And believe me, we found some nasty ones and we found some beautiful ones. But, we are doing those inspections now.
So, go ahead. So on the last bullet, we've updated the inspection checklist. Again, it's not an all-inclusive list, but we again, Mary, you asked the question, we hand that out. It's on a spreadsheet. These are the common things that we're seeing, these deficiencies that we're typically seeing in a normal inspection process. We give that out. That's out there for them to have and to review. Again, we talked about this, the deferred up to 2 years, again, addressing the issue if they have a current tenant in there, waiting for up to 2 years, or if the tenant is out. One of the things, so these last two bullets, when we first initiated this, there was one of the main complaints we received, it was a fair complaint that we received from the property management company, was that it's a 4-hour inspection window. That window has gone down as far as the window, meaning we're going to come inspect it within a 4-hour period. We ultimately would like to bring this in-house, and I think Jim, I want to applaud Jim and his group bringing in the multifamily inspection process. We feel that we can bring that in-house and reduce the inspection fee, which, I think would do a couple of things. It would at least address the 4-hour inspection time frame, so when they do sign up, get a register, we'll go out there, get the inspection done in a much quicker time frame. But it also addresses the issue of the cost of the inspection. There'll still be some cost. There's always going to be the cost of the inspection, but the $100, which was one of the things that we heard loud and clear, and that's a pass-through to our third-party vendor, we can reduce that cost to bring it in-house, and allows for the code enforcement officers to be, I think, to have a better sense of their particular areas that they're working, so they know within their particular zones where the rental properties are. I think it makes them overall, I think, a better inspector when they're looking inside and outside. But they know their areas better. And so those two things we really want to be able to address is reduce this 4-hour inspection time window by bringing it in-house, and then being able to reduce the fee for the inspection, and especially when the re-inspect fee, when they were getting hit with the re-inspect fee. If we can address those, I think that would also, I think, go a long way in meeting the concerns that we did hear from, and I think very fair concerns from some of the property managers. So
some of the concerns that I've heard about the re-inspection fee was it's an onerous fee in terms of the dollar amount. Now, I realize we're using a third party to do that. It's not in-house, so that's a contracted service that we're paying $100 for. But some of the individuals said, why can't we do something what the state does when you do your vehicle inspection? It's a flat rate, pass or fail. If you have to come back in for a re-inspection, you're not paying for the inspection again. But I know the back end of that is, if you look at it from a business standpoint, that $25 that you're paying for your initial inspection is also incorporating money enough to do the re-inspection, so nobody's coming out short.
Yeah, and let me cut you off. So the 25 is for the registration. That's what you're going to pay annually to register your property. The $100 is the inspection fee. But I think with us also too, Mayor.
I saw there was a $100 inspection and a $100
For every apartment,
yeah,
$25.
You mentioned 25.
Apartment complex.
No, but I mentioned 25 and
On
just
top
the
of it,
relationship
gotcha.
for getting our vehicles
Oh, that's
inspected.
Gotcha. So yes,
So
you're right.
What I'm saying is, if the initial inspection was a bit more than 100, it would cover the re-inspection without having to charge somebody a second time.
That's true. I think
It's a markup.
I think, though, too, Mayor, to address that concern, again, giving them the information ahead of time and saying, look, this is what we're looking for. Again, we mentioned before we have 5 automatic fails. We had the picture, we saw what they were. I think by getting that to most folks and saying, before you ask for an inspection, if you can address these, if you've got other issues that we see during the inspection process, we'll note those in our inspection report. But if we can, and we are doing that every time they come up to register, we're giving, this is the stuff we're looking for, folks. But also too, Mayor, I would like to be able to reduce that 100. I'd like to bring it in-house like we have planned and reduce that. You know, I can't tell you at this point what that inspection fee would be. Maybe it's 25 with one extra re-inspection. Now, if it gets just like on a commercial property, if we're going for a third inspection, which means you may not necessarily be addressing when you're coming back and asking for another inspection and we're coming out there to do it again, then it starts becoming problematic. But I think we can reduce that.
Okay.
I think we can reduce that. And again, as I mentioned before, that $100 was there because we wanted to initiate the program fairly quickly.
Have the individuals that you use as a focus group, you know, they wanted to come in and talk.
And that was a forced focus group, but
Yeah.
it was good comments.
But have they been advised of the modifications being made to the program as a result of their inputs?
But most of the major players have been, yes. We've, Kevin and I have visited with them, I've visited with a number of them. And, you know, I think they still have some issues, I'll be perfectly honest. I know one of the issues is the eviction notice. That I think someone brought that up in one of the public hearings, that, you know, they've got their legal requirements. You know, and I've explained, we put it here because we've had that lesson that it happened to us. And so, you know, that's the reason we put it in there. If
We're just asking
Yeah.
for the property manager to let us know.
Right.
Because what happens is when they evict somebody and they pile everything out there on the front yard, as Paul said, we get the calls immediately from the neighborhood. And they're gonna blame us for it, that we're not doing something to address it. So all we're doing is asking them to say, you know when you're gonna evict someone, give us a heads up so that we can be prepared to start our timetable at the same time and move on it faster. If this is too onerous, then tell us what is the best way to do
But
that.
ma'am, point out, we're not interfering with their eviction process.
No.
And I think that's where the confusion was, that we were trying to intercede in a legal issue with them, and that is not the case. It is more of, city, just heads up, I've got a tenant, they've not been
It's
paying.
more
rent,
getting used
whatever.
to it. It's just more getting used
Yeah,
to it.
I think so. And it's just more, hey, just give us, let's work together. Give us a heads up that this tenant's gonna be evicted so that we're ready. Now, what we'll ask them though, when they communicate that to us, our ask will be, what's your plan? Because it's gonna sit there, and ultimately the owner, which we've had to do when
Well, the landlord can't touch it.
it's
That's the law. That's the sheriff. The sheriff puts it out, the landlord has to put it out.
That's right, that's where it
They have to
gets,
give so many hours for them
Notice,
to
yeah.
know, for it to, that they can take their stuff after so many hours. I don't know what it is, maybe Rob probably knows. And that's all we're asking.
By the next business day.
Yeah.
By the next, so that's all, but then by the time we find out about it, we have to give so many hours of notice, and now you're extending
You get
that.
a
We want
two-
them to run concurrently, so we know when you're gonna do it. As soon as that time frame is up, we can abate it if we need to, or what we'd rather do is have the property manager abate it so that we're not having to pay for that.
Yeah, that's
Taxpayers.
we don't want to do it.
Okay, I need to bring this to a close. We've got about 2 minutes before we start council.
I have a comment. Mr. Frederickson, thank you so much for going through this so extensively and in depth. What I'd like to do is, just speaking as an individual councilman, I'd like to hear from some of the property managers that got convened a while back, and from the public, and do a public hearing. And let's see, or at least have an opportunity to hear some other perspectives as to how this is working out for us.
That's council's desire.
We've met with several of the property managers, so I guess how would you propose that we do that? That's what our.
Well, and if the property manager isn't a Duncanville citizen, I don't know what kind of jurisdiction or, if they don't live here, that would be the same as someone from Arlington coming in.
Yeah, but the citation goes to the property, not to the.
Right.
So it goes with the property, not the.
The community is still affected, so just extend the invitation. If they come, fine. If they don't, fine. We keep on going down the road.
Well, I would not like to see a public hearing, to quote you. I think another call for a focus group, have them come in and sit down with our staff would be appropriate, but not a public hearing. If we want to have more input in terms of the effect of what we've done, that's fine. But to pose it to council and to have a council meeting as a public hearing, I don't see the purpose in that.
Would it be possible for us if such a conference were convened for us to come by and just listen in?
It is absolutely, as long as there's not a quorum. Or I guess the city council.
We have to post
The
it.
city council,
We have a
then
quorum.
you got
You can
some
have
kind
quorum,
of
you just have
issue.
to post it.
Yeah, but certainly, an individual could show up, as long as there's no quorum that is presented in there, it'd be okay.
As
What we
long
could
as no
do is-
business is transacted, I just simply want to hear.
What we could do is schedule something and then let you all know, and then let us know if you plan to attend, and if we have more than 4, we can just post it then.
Yeah.
And if I just may, also to Councilmember, as we've initiated these changes and these adjustments based on their the first input, I think we have reduced the number of calls. They'll call me directly, which I want them to. If there's issues, I know Councilmember McBurnett has referred a number of them to me. He loves doing that. On purpose, I'm just kidding. No, but and I don't mind taking those, because I think if we do have cracks or anything, I want to address them. I think the changes we've made have been beneficial. I think they'll also appreciate the hundreds of, perhaps it might be a trigger point when, because this will be part of the budget process, so we would recommend in the fee schedule to reduce the inspection fee. We would then solidify bringing it in-house, and perhaps that might be another time that we'll have a little bit more that we can provide them and say, we heard you the first time, we made these adjustments, here are the remaining adjustments that we're going to make, but they're council driven from the standpoint of the fee schedule. And perhaps at that time, we can then say, here's some additional things that we're doing to meet the concerns, especially the 4-hour window and the $100 fee.
Fair enough.
I think I hope you stick with life safety and just don't start getting into, your opinion of the driveway and stuff like that. That's where I'm worried that it goes, inspectors get, more and more, and stick with life safety. But what I've heard today, except for the fees, seem kind of unreasonable, maybe a little bit, but what I've heard is not unreasonable, and it just could take some getting used to from most property owners. But, I guess just try to be kind inspecting, kind of, it's not being reasonable. It's your judgment that the driveway's no good, but I may like the busted up look on my driveway,
It's a new program, and we don't want to be draconian
That's fine.
about
That's
how we
all I'm
address it.
asking, just to
But I do want to say though,
side in the favor of maybe the property manager, what I mean.
but we do have to point out if there are some issues that we see.
If it's life safety, carbon monoxide,
But if there's mold covering up
that's
half
life
a
safety.
ceiling.
Mold
Okay.
is life, mold is dangerous.
There are going to be some things that are going to be, you'll hear.
Those are life safety,
Okay.
in my opinion. Those are,
We don't fail them on aesthetics.
Yeah.
what's that?
We don't fail them on aesthetics.
Okay, we're going to recess this at 7:04, and let's please move to council as quickly as possible. Oh, a little bit of housekeeping. I believe the 2 items that we're moving from consent to individual consideration, items 4C and 4D, since the applicants are here, and not to delay or defer their time being involved too much, I think we ought to go ahead and take items 4C and 4D and go ahead and put them as the first 2 items on individual consideration. For consideration of the individuals that are here that didn't know, thought it would be consent, now it's individual consideration. So let's take care of those first. Second piece of housekeeping, we do have executive session. Obviously, we're not going to be able to take care of that at this point. If that executive session is still necessary and called for, that's going to be the last thing that we do. Is that particular item still necessary? That item is still necessary, therefore it will be the last thing that we do. Okay. Thank you for coming to our city council meeting, City of Duncanville, August 6, 2019. And we are calling to order our meeting at 7:11. and our apologies for running late. Our briefing sessions got into some detail, and we had to finish some discussions there. So thank you for your patience and bearing with us. Some housekeeping items. The executive session shown as item number 1. We are going to defer that until the end of our meeting because we weren't able to hold that executive session during the briefing session. And also 2 items that were on the consent agenda, items 4C and 4D, were requested to be taken off of consent agenda and put items for individual consideration. So those 2 items are going to be the first 2 items that we're going to be discussing under individual consideration. That's some housekeeping for you so you know how we're going to be proceeding tonight. Okay. And also items 5C and D under items for individual consideration. The proponent, the applicant, the primary for these 2 items is not available tonight due to illness, so these 2 are being postponed until a subsequent meeting. So those are the adjustments that we have to tonight's agenda. And thank you for bearing with us. So next thing that we have on the agenda is the invocation, and the invocation tonight is going to be given to us by Pastor Luis Salazar from the Lighthouse. And Pastor Salazar, I would like to say, is my pastor. And he's a cool guy. And it's my pleasure and my honor to serve with him in our place of worship. Pastor Salazar, please rise. What? This individual that has this great sense of humor, Mr. Cooks, would like to see you afterwards to explain some things to you about me. And you don't have to take that if you don't want to, Pastor, but that's fine. So Pastor Salazar, is this mic available and on? Is the boom mic on? Okay, there we go.
Right. Would you pray with me? Father in heaven, we come to you in the name of Jesus. And we thank you for, first of all, the ability to gather in freedom. Lord, we know that many men and women have sacrificed their life so that we could convene here today. And I'm thankful for that, and we remember that, Lord, and we honor that. Lord, I'm thankful for men and women who choose to serve. Lord, these councilmen, these councilwomen, our mayor who choose to serve. Lord, your word says that you came, Lord, not to be served, but to serve, and they are acting upon your word, and I'm thankful for them. I pray your blessing upon them, all the hours that they give as they pour out, all the stress that they deal with, all the ideas that they have, the burdens that they carry. Lord, I pray that you would just be with them and lift them up. Lord, I'm thankful for every person who's in attendance today. Lord, these your citizens of this great city, Lord, who have chosen to come in their own time to share their concerns, to be here and support. I pray that we, although I'm myself a citizen of this great city, Lord, I pray that we would always honor you by honoring those that sit before us in authority, that have been elected. Lord, that we would remember them in prayer and do as your word says to pray for those in authority. Lord, I thank you, Father, that you would just guide the hands of all those, the voices that are making every kind of decision today. May we be led of your Spirit, and we invite you in this place, and we bless you for all these things. In the mighty name of Jesus, I pray. Amen.
Amen. Please join me in pledges to our flags. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Thank you. Please be seated. I've already got it.
Okay.
It's on the list, yeah. Yep. Next item on the agenda is the mayor's report. First thing I would like to say is you may notice that Councilmember Joe Veracruz is absent tonight, and he is on a well-earned vacation. So we thank him for his service and hope and pray that he's having a wonderful time of relaxation. I also believe it is in our best interest and our obligation to give a moment of silence to the tragedies that have affected our nation this week in the senseless killing of a multitude of innocent people and the evil that lurks in our society. Not just here, but around the world. We see events like this all around the world of individuals who have abhorrent personalities in terms of what they see and what they understand and how their minds have been turned to evil, to darkness. So please let's take a moment of silence for those who have perished. Thank you. I also want to take a moment to express my appreciation to several aspects of our city staff. We only had one city council meeting in July, and we were a very, very busy agenda on that very last meeting. And I was remiss in paying attention to some of the individuals and some of our staff that did such a great job, particularly for the 4th of July. I want to thank our police department and our fire department for all they did for keeping order and for a great time that we had in the park. I had many, many people that we talked to that were thankful for the police department's presence because it was a great atmosphere. People enjoyed coming and they felt safe. And we know that our fire department did a great job for us as well, so that those fireworks didn't cause any unforeseen flame outs or accidents such as they were. So it's in Parks and Rec, for Parks and Recreation, for all the staff, the many, many extra hours that they put in terms of putting together that operation. We had over, we can pretty well estimate that we had over 9,000 people. That was just on the grounds of Armstrong Park. That didn't include the thousands of people that lined our city streets. And there again, on the city streets, we had our police force and law enforcement there to watch over people and give safety to our people. So thank you to all those. And also for the July 4th parade that was put on by our Community Lions Club, thank you for them. And also, I don't know if you noticed, but whenever we have a federal holiday or a special day, that American flags go up around our city. And you may not know where those come from. Those come from our community Rotary Club. And so thanks to them for all that they do. And if you ever want a flag, I'm sure you can contact the Rotary Club and get one into your residence. Next thing I want to cover is a proclamation. It's actually a letter that I received from Senator Cornyn. And it concerns something tomorrow, August 7th. It's the National Purple Heart Day. The National Purple Heart Day. And this is the day recognizing those individuals who are served in our armed forces and have been wounded in battle, wounded in combat. So that is a day tomorrow to be remembered. And I know that driving around the city, driving around everywhere, I see lots of Purple Heart plates on people's vehicles. So when you see those individuals, give them a nod. And Lieutenant Colonel Leo Bell is here. Leo, I don't know, do you have a Purple Heart? You don't. Irrespective of that, thank you for your service. Thank you for your service. I'm sorry? I'm not there yet. Haven't forgot. Last item I want to cover is to give public recognition to some item that has appeared on social media for our city. And it has received some comment, and want to make it known from this group of council members that yes, this city has been, let's put it this way, a lawsuit has been filed against the city. Now, technically and legally speaking, the filing of a lawsuit against the city does not necessarily mean that the city is guilty. It simply means that it's under consideration. We live in a democracy. We are permitted to speak our minds, we are permitted to disagree, but we are not always getting our way based on what we say. So that lawsuit that has been filed but not yet served upon the city is important. And there's a great distinction there, because there's a judge involved in this who has read that filing and is uncertain of whether or not the city is to be served. So that judge has set a subsequent meeting with the plaintiff for sometime in early September to discuss the filing, to find out whether it is necessary for that legal proceeding to move forward. So whatever you see on social media, however people are approaching this, those are the facts, and that's what I want you to know. So that is my mayor's report. Any council members' reports? Mr. Cooks.
Yes, sir, Mayor and citizens of Duncanville, good evening. Just want to talk about, just really quick, to recognize the staff for a wonderful job for the Wintergreen Project. Many of you may be aware that on last week, the staff have been working with the surrounding cities and with the Dallas County, a partnership with the Dallas County, Cedar Hill, as well as the DeSoto, and working on the Wintergreen Project, which is located on Wintergreen and Main Street. So I want to recognize staff for doing an excellent job and working with that partnership for sure. So thank you, staff and city manager, for your leadership. The other part, of course, I want to talk about Lunch and Learn. We will have Lunch and Learn again this month. This month, we will have with us, the topics will be our school board members. And so we will have 3 school board members joining us for lunch. So if you have students, and if you want to know the role of the school board, please join us for lunch at Luby's. It's at 6:15 to 7:30. And so we will ask you to join us for that Lunch and Learn on August 22nd, 2019. And I'll just go ahead and put in a plug for next month. Our own mayor will be our guest at our Lunch and Learn for next month. So don't eat too much, and just save that next month for Mayor Gordon, or you'll get to have lunch with Mayor Gordon next month. And then last but not least, but it's the Shop Duncanville. So my testimony for Shop Duncanville, as I always share, the most important things we do is to shop in the city in which we live, pay our taxes for. I gave you a testimony about the nail salon last time, and I visited that same location again, only to overhear a conversation for a young lady who lived in Duncanville and said, I used to go to Cedar Hill, now I'm in Duncanville. So I said, hooray for you. But my own personal Shop Duncanville, this council meeting, is my traditional KFC visit. And if you ask my grandbaby, who was probably 5 at the time, she said, Papa, do we always have to go to KFC on Wednesdays? I said, yes, because they have a $3 special. Well, this time I decided not to go to the KFC on Camp Wisdom Road in Dallas. I decided to take an extra drive and come to the KFC in Duncanville for the same price and the same meal. And so I'll encourage you, if you're shopping outside of Duncanville and there's the same place in Duncanville, I'll encourage you to shop Duncanville. And here's a little nugget I want to pass that way, by the way, and that is the same owner I also used to go to Cedar Hill and do that same $3.24 shopping on Wednesday night. But the same owner that owns the Cedar Hill KFC owns the Duncanville KFC. And so for him, my dollars only switch the location. So I'll encourage all of you, if you're not shopping Duncanville, shop Duncanville. It encourages other business owners to do the same. Shop Duncanville, and shop Duncanville. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional council members' reports? Seeing none, we will move on. Thank you. City manager's report. Okay, thank you. Next item on the agenda are proclamations and presentations. Again, for information, the individual to receive the item 2B, the presentation for KDB for Sonic, that individual is not available tonight, so we are going to postpone that one. But we are going to do the presentation or proclamation in recognition of Daughters of the American Revolution, the Old Chisholm Trail Chapter Day. And representing the chapter is Sandra Jo Lavinia. You want to explain all that?
Well, this is offices that I have had in Daughters of the American Revolution, just different awards that I've won. Different awards I've won, things like that. For those who don't know who Daughters of the American Revolution is, it's a service organization where everyone has the common theme, the daughters, of being related to someone who fought as a patriot in the American Revolution. Well, is a patriot. They could have given hay or food or someone like that, but she was a patriot. So,
I see my home state flag on there, Arizona.
yes, sir. That is for the Arizona Juniors Club, of which my sister's a member. So I became a member to support her.
Wonderful, thank you. Let me read the proclamation for you. Whereas the Old Chisholm Trail chapter of the Daughters of the American Revolution was chartered 42 years ago in the home of Mrs. M.M. Harrington. And whereas charter officers of the chapter included Organizing Regent Twilla Bell Gaunt, Maddie Ray, Fouts, Vice Regent Blanche Jackson, Recording Secretary Eula Iris Armstrong, Corresponding Secretary Helen Lee Heron, Treasurer Joan Beth Bickerstaff, Registrar Marcia Tyler, Historian, Peggy Farmer, Librarian, and Beulah Freeman, Chaplain. And whereas the Old Chisholm Trail chapter began with 82 charter members, and whereas these charter members, through active involvement with the chapter, have contributed to many worthwhile projects that have helped make Duncanville the city of champions, and whereas the Old Chisholm Trail chapter remains important for future generations, as many families who first founded Duncanville are from revolutionary ancestors. And whereas the Old Chisholm Trail chapter has prospered from the leadership provided by many outstanding and faithful members throughout its history. Therefore, I, Barry L. Gordon, Mayor of the City of Duncanville, Texas, do hereby proclaim August 6, 2019 as Daughters of the American Revolution's Old Chisholm Trail Chapter Day in the City of Duncanville, and urge all citizens to join me in celebrating the many contributions the Old Chisholm Trail Chapter has made to the Daughters of the American Revolution and the City of Duncanville. Thank you very much for all that you do.
Thank you. And I do have one thing for you as celebration of this is Constitution Week. And with Old Chisholm Trail Chapter would like to present to Mayor Barry Gordon in recognition of outstanding work in upholding and promoting the ideals of the Constitution of the United States, this certificate of award.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Thank you. Ready for some photos? Excuse me, the next item on the agenda is item number 3, citizens input. And at this time, 2-minute comments will be taken from the audience on any topic. And to address the council, I have received some completed request cards, and I will call those individuals forward in just a moment. Individuals will have 2 minutes to speak, and you will be timed, and the city secretary, or substitute city secretary Angelica will time that for you. So please watch the clock. And during this time of citizen comment, you may discuss any issues raised, but no decisions or discussions with city council are permitted during this time. I have one card from Deborah Bixel, and this particular item that you wanted to speak on is actually part of the public hearing for item 4A. So if it's okay, we'll defer your comment until we come to that. Okay? All right, put that there. So the next card I have is Brian Kaiser. Did I say that correctly? Kaiser? Kaiser? Come up, please. And please give us your name and address.
Yes, sir. Good evening, council members, mayor. My name is Brian Kaiser, owner of Black and Bitter Coffee and Books and Mudhook Bar and Kitchen, both located off 100 South Main Street. I wanted to respectfully speak against the financing for the Russell Glenn Company, Starbucks, $24 billion company that pays living wage pay to their workers. We have a coffee shop here in town. This will be located 2.2 miles from it. Being a $24 billion multinational corporation, I'm not really sure why they would need $157,000 in assistance. So I would like to state what my business and other local business owners do for the local community and how we invest in it. I've spent over $100,000 of my own money building out 2 businesses, one of which is already open, because I believe in the city of Duncanville and I believe in Main Street. They go along with the city council capstones 1, 2, and 3. So number 1, most engaged citizens in America. Number 2, creating high quality neighborhoods, and number 3, preserving the historic Main Street and city center areas. So under items 1, 2, and 3 of the city council agenda, we have local business owner who pays school district taxes and supports the area already in business that the city council could be picking a winner over by giving a $24 billion multinational corporation assistance when they don't really need it. So I'd like to continue creating a high-quality neighborhood on Main Street and in the city center area, despite whether or not they come to town. That's my 2 minutes.
Thank you. The next card I have is Marlis Gordon.
Thank you, sir. Marlis Gordon, 1751 Crescent Lane, Duncanville. Mayor, City Council, City staff, I want to take a moment to thank the council and the staff of our city, our first responders, and the wonderful citizens of Duncanville for their caring, gracious way that they checked on my husband, Barry Gordon, in April and May when he was having health issues. That would be you, sir. I'm so grateful for the wonderful citizens of Duncanville. And I just wanted to say publicly thank you so much to all of them and all of you, council members and city staff, especially our wonderful first responders. Thank you for caring. Thank you for checking on him. Thank you for emails and text messages, phone calls, and get well cards. Many citizens told us they were praying for you and that their churches were praying. And I'm just so grateful to live in this wonderful city. Thank you, Council.
Thank you. Dario Crisetto.
My name is Dario Crosetto. I live in 900 Hideaway Place in DeSoto, Texas. Good evening, council member. Hate has no place in America. I am a victim of an hate crime, mobbing, and bullying for several years from people who have undermined the sister city. Why this? Because I am asking, it sounds really unbelievable, because I am asking everyone to express what their conscience consider right or wrong, the behavior they would take as an example to educate their grandchildren and future generations. These people know what is wrong, but do not want to take responsibility to fix it. Instead, they prefer the mobbing and bullying. My request for a meeting with the Duncanville council member was never granted. My February 7 request for a meeting with Mayor Gordon was granted on July 8th, and after 2 hours conversation with both committees to keep the dialogue open. Instead, I have not received a reply to any of my messages, not even from a 10-line message or a 100-character text message. Because I want to defend the education of grandchildren and the young generation, I am forced to counter the mobbing and bullying and telling the truth, distributing information material, reporting irrefutable facts. Do you think it is legitimate justification to use mobbing and bullying toward me and commit a hate crime because I am asking to express what everyone's conscience considers right or wrong for their grandchildren? Here, people write to City Hall insulting and discrediting me, and they write to the city police, the county sheriff to discredit me, ask them to give me a warning arrest because I report fact and I am asking to express what their conscience consider right or wrong. In Italy, I am insulted, threatened, and people trespass my property to steal the sign reporting the truth that they never refuted in a civil argument. I am respectfully asking to stop this hate crime instead of feeding it. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes our citizen input. Moving on to item number 4, consent agenda, and also recalling items 4C and 4D have been moved to the regular agenda. So City Secretary, please read the consent items into the record.
Consider the minutes for the June 24, 2019 joint meeting with the DCEDC, the July 16, 2019 budget workshop meeting, the July 16, 2019 regular city council meeting, the July 22, 2019 special meeting, and the July 22, 2019 joint meeting with planning and zoning. Item 4B. Consider a resolution authorizing a 3-year engagement for professional auditing services with McConnell & Jones LLP with an annual amount of $42,000 and providing a total expenditure of $126,000. Item 4E. Consider a resolution authorizing award of bid number 19-030, water and wastewater utility improvements for the Greenbrier Estates Edition Phase 1, High Ridge Drive to Douglas Daily Construction, LLC, through the city's competitive bid process with an estimated expenditure amount of $630,606. Item 4F, consider a resolution authorizing award IFB number 19-047, water and wastewater utility improvements in the Forest Hills Edition, South Alexander Avenue, to FM Utilities, LLC, through the city's competitive bid process with an estimated expenditure amount of $644,047.59. Item 4G, consider a resolution authorizing an application for safe routes to school grant funding from the Texas Department of Transportation to make infrastructure improvements that will improve the walking and biking environment for students and the citizens of Duncanville on 3 designated routes.
Thank you. The chair will entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion to approve. Who has a second? Please vote. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Is a representative with the new audit company here?
That I do not. Mr. Summerlin? Yes?
Yeah, we have never met him. Maybe we can meet him.
Please introduce our guest.
Hello, my name is Victor Zavala. I am an audit senior with McConnell Jones. Been working for the company for about 3 years and have 7 years worth of audit experience.
Thank you.
Where are they located?
We have an office in Addison, so about 35 minutes away, 45-minute drive.
Right, I'm familiar with Addison. Thank you. So, nice to know you. So you're going to be our person?
Yes, I'll be the main person in contact with y'all.
Okay. It's nice to know you.
Thank you. Moving on to item number 5, items for individual consideration. As I mentioned earlier, we're going to take the items 4C and 4D. We're going to take them first. So I will read item 4C, which becomes, I don't know what number it's going to be. We'll just change the letters as we go along, I guess.
No, it's item 4C.
Well, when I get to item 5A, what do I call it? Okay, all right. Item 4C. Consider a resolution authorizing approval of an economic development performance agreement by the Duncanville Community and Economic Development Corporation, parens DCEDC, for a property enhancement grant to Palio Partners in an amount up to 70% of the actual costs, not to exceed $22,426.60 for the building located at 103 North Cedar Ridge Road in Duncanville, Texas. Ms. James.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor and Council. As the Mayor just stated, Paleo Partners has requested an economic development assistance with the building specified to demolish a portion of their building and repurpose it in order to attract more desirable tenants. The applicant is here this evening, and they can talk further in terms of what they've done to try to reach out to other tenants in its current condition and the results that they've gotten. The building was originally a bank, as you all know, and it currently has restrictions on reopening as a bank, so that's not an opportunity. They have to look for a new purpose for that structure. In addition, what they would do is that they would remove the teller drive-through and they would repurpose the single space into 2 multi-spaces. The DCEDC board did unanimously approve this grant on July 22nd at their regular EDC meeting. In addition to approving the grant, the applicant would also be required to sign a performance agreement, as all of our grant applicants do. What I'd like to show here real quickly is where this building's located, just for the general public. Most of you know it's in the shopping center there that's either in front of the Subways or Thibodeau's. This is the current building in terms of what it looks like, and we'll just go through some pictures here. You can see there that really it's not set up for a retail purpose. It's more set up for a service industry. These are the new renderings that they provided, and this is what they're proposing that the remodeling of the building would look like. You can see there are 2 tenant spaces, and then you'll see here in a minute that that drive-through has been removed to accommodate those new retail spaces and additional parking, and also make it more flexible to get around the building. So the applicant, as I said, Brendan Hollier is here this evening, and he will be happy to answer any questions that City Council might have, or if there's any questions that I can answer, I'd be happy to.
Ms. Jamison?
That's me.
I'm sorry, okay.
Hey, Jessica, you mentioned there was restrictions from opening as a bank. Can you say that, can you explain that more?
Actually, that would be probably better coming from the applicant, if that's okay with you.
That's fine, thank you.
Okay, great. Go ahead. You can come up.
Thank you all for having me here, Mayor.
Please give us your name again, just for the record.
Brendan Hollier.
Got it.
I'm with Palio Partners, and I live at 6342 Lakeshore Drive in Dallas.
The restriction from being a bank again, I just,
Yes, sir. When we purchased the property, we learned before we purchased the property that Chase Bank had deed restricted the property from being another Chase Bank, or from being any other banking institution, prohibiting competition from them in the market. We also have a deed restriction on the property that dates back about 40 years, restricting gas stations and convenience stores.
all right, thank you.
Yep. Any other questions I can answer?
Any further questions? Mr. Anderson?
Do you already own the property?
Yes, sir, we do.
And is $22,000 really make or break the deal? Does 20, is it, I mean, really?
No, it doesn't make or break it. It helps us attract better tenants. We've owned the property now for about 10 months. It was our anticipation that once we purchased the property that we would be able to lease it up in its current condition, and that's what our budget allowed for. We've now reached out to clarify the number, Jessica, we've reached out to 203 different restaurant and retail tenants and have had zero success at this point attracting anyone to the building. One of the main items or feedback that we're receiving is that it looks like a bank and it does not look like it's retail ready. And so part of our renovation is going to be removing the teller station, as she mentioned. We're going to be demoing everything on the inside, replacing the storefront, putting a new coat of paint on the building, modifying the facade with a wainscot, wainscot, excuse me, new light fixtures, cedar planks around the building, and then updating some of the items, the hardscape up front to be ADA compliant, which it's not currently today.
How much money will you be spending on improvements to the property total?
Currently today we have a building permit, and our bids came back at $171,000. That is to make the improvements I described. It'll be basically a warm, dark shell on the inside, and we'll be adding, as you can see there, a second entry, and marketing it as either a single or multi-tenant use.
Ms. Jamison?
Hi, I'm curious, what made you buy it?
We like the real estate positioning. It's a hard corner site, and as you know, there's a premium, and it's highly desirable for both restaurant and retail type of uses. We like the access to the site. We like the location relative to the high school, knowing that there's a lot of traffic on North Cedar Ridge Road going up to Interstate 20, both in the morning and the evening times. There's a good traffic flow that makes it desirable, not only for us as a developer, but also for uses, whether it's restaurant or retail, which is what we're aiming to put there.
Well, I can kind of see the traffic for a restaurant, but retail, there's office buildings there that are empty on Cedar Ridge. So.
Yeah, you may know a little bit about Palio Partners. Our bread and butter is restaurants, and that's what our focus is. It's about 180 of the 203 concepts that we've reached out to are restaurant uses. The shopping center behind us, I don't believe has any vacancy. Now, adjacent or south of us at the southwest corner, there is a vacancy there, more than when we purchased the property, so a little bit concerning, and more reason for us to invest in the building and differentiate ourselves from the rest of the competition there.
So did someone from the city bring you here? No. You just...
We've gone 10 months without any success. When we purchased the property, we were made aware of a demolition program if we had torn the building down to build a new standalone freestanding building. So I inquired with the city when we came up with this plan of modifying the building, asking if we would be eligible for reimbursement for demolition cost for a partial demolition, and I was told that I'd be eligible for it. So that's why I'm here.
And that sounds like a better idea than demolishing the entire building and starting from.
If we could find a tenant to take that down and, excuse me, build a single tenant use, we would have done it. We've reached out to a lot of people. It's not cost effective to take that building down and rebuild the exact same thing. What we're proposing is to put a new skin and put some TLC into a building that's going to look like a brand new building when it's complete. It's a steel building, which, as you probably know, has a much longer lifespan than a wood structure or a light gauge metal steel structure. So it allows us to take down a lot of the parts that have been dilapidated over time and make improvements.
Okay.
Thank you. Any further comments? Mr. Harvey.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a question for Jessica.
Sure.
Did I read correctly in looking at the agenda for this particular item that the EDC voted to support it unanimously?
Yes, sir, you did.
Thank you.
Mr. Harvey?
I have a question either for Jessica or the manager. Are we offering incentives for people to tear down buildings?
We do, yes, sir. The city council did approve a demo rebuild program, not just to tear down buildings, but the whole point is to try to repurpose those buildings that are that are distressed or no longer usable. There are incentives for that. We do also have facade incentives to actually take existing buildings.
No, I'm just interested in the tear down
and
of buildings. I'm just interested if we're offering incentives out there on the streets for people to tear down buildings. That's what I'm asking.
Yes, we do have a demo rebuild program. Yes, sir, that was approved by city council.
I don't remember that, but must have been before me.
That was prior to your coming on council.
I think we need to I would like to talk about revisiting that, but that's not in this case. So.
Right, that's off target, so, yeah.
I would have to go back and check my notes. I don't remember. It's been about 2 years. Yes, sir.
Okay, seeing no further comment, Chair will entertain a motion to approve.
Move to approve.
We have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion to approve, and we have a second. Please vote. Motion passes. Moving on to item 4D. This is one that's removed from the consent agenda, coming to the items for individual consideration. Consider a resolution authorizing approval of an economic development performance agreement by the Duncanville Community and Economic Development Corporation, DCEDC, for a property enhancement grant to Russell Glenn Company in an amount up to 70% of the actual cost, not to exceed $157,261.82 for the building located at 106 East Highway 67 in Duncanville, Texas. Ms. James, please.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor and Council. This request is very similar to the last request that you had before you. Russell Glenn Company has requested economic development assistance to demolish a portion of an existing building, which they are purchasing, to be able to repurpose it and to attract a national specialty restaurant chain and ensure a higher and better use of the current building. As you know, it was formerly a bank building originally that was positioned to face the development. Then it went on to be restaurants, and as you know, the latest was the Dickey's Barbecue. It does have the smoker on the back as well that would be removed, and then they would be putting a new drive-through on the north to assist the new restaurant. In addition to this, as I said on the last item, on July 22nd, 2019, the DCEDC board did vote unanimously to approve this grant. If the grant was approved, again, they would be required to enter into a performance agreement. Within that performance agreement, they would be required that 50% or one of those spaces would have to be leased by a national chain in order to get, or a performing restaurant in order to get their incentive. And they are aware of that. This one was a little bit different in the fact because we were able to analyze the property because they did have a prospective tenant to go in there. That looking at that, we did have our third party analyze the incentive to look at the payback period. And it was determined that they would have a payback period of less than 3 years. That does not take into account if there was a second retailer in there that did collect sales tax as well. There is also a long list of certain things that cannot go in that second space, such as tattoo parlors and hair salons and nail salons and things like that. The council has expressed themselves in the past that they would that we have enough of in the community, and so there are some restrictions that would be put in place to be able to ensure that the right product was put in both of those units. So with that, let's go through some pictures here. You can see that this is where the building's located, over there by the LA Fitness. I mean, as we talked about before, the former Dickey's Barbecue building on the corner of Main and Highway 67. This is the current look of the building, as what we were talking about before, and as you all know, that's the front of the building that faces back to the development and not on Highway 67. In addition, if you look up there on the picture to the left, you will see that that is where the smoker is that would be removed. Unless you're really a barbecue restaurant, there's really not that need. These are the proposed renderings in terms of what the building would look like. As I said before, it would be taking one space and splitting it up. There's two, but it just doesn't function efficiently the way it's currently laid out. So it would be restructuring the inside as well. But you can see that this is the proposed look. And there's another look at it. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions that the City Council might have. And the applicant, both applicants are here this evening. We have Terrence Maiden and we have Waylon, and I apologize right now, Langino, and I know that I probably killed his last name, so I apologize. But they're both here this evening and would be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Okay, Mr. Cooks.
Hey, Jessica, I really like the proposal that you just expressed with all the things that the incentive would allow them to do or not to do. Why is this one so different than the last one you were just presented with the restrictions?
It's not. The biggest part was in terms of specifically specifying that one of them has to be a restaurant was because of the dollar amount. The EDC board felt like that if they were going to put this money into repurposing this building, that they wanted to see the highest and the best use and the highest return for the community for that investment.
I like that. I like that thought pattern put into that for sure. And secondly, who took this? Makes me strange. Who took the photos of this? But this project, and who took the photos of the last project?
The applicants did, and they provided those photos.
Can you show us the photos of that building one more time?
Of this building?
Yes. I'm just going to look at this photo, and if everybody look around this photo for a second. Are you able to go back to that last photo of the last applicant, of the building?
Yes, sir, if you'll give us just one moment.
Give me the old photo, before.
Okay. There's a picture.
Keep going. Right there. So the last applicant, and I know we passed the last applicant, I want to appreciate the applicant that took the photo here of a clean structure of the one that's here, the one that's presenting for us now. I just wanted us to see these two different photos. So I'm hoping that the applicant that's coming up today, that I can see that it's a different developer that's taking care of the property already, took even pride in taking photos to present to the council, and then present this photo looking at the current building. I mean, I think that was one of my other reasoning for wanting us to see these two different photos. So thank you, that was my question.
Mr. Anderson?
I'd like to understand how you're going to get $147,000 back in 3 years. I don't understand that. Where are you going to get that?
We have a third-party analysis company that looks at the total investment into the property in terms of ad valorem taxes as well as sales tax and what other additional income that can bring into the community.
But you don't have those figures for us to see? You don't have those figures?
The city council is welcome to see that. That information is confidential because it does have performance information in it that's provided to us by the applicant.
But you're asking us to approve $140,000 for, and not see the numbers. I think that we have a right to see those numbers. I don't think that's right that we don't get to see them. Besides that, also you said the council said to go get a national tenant. It's not local. You have to get a national tenant in here, not local?
It needs to be a restaurant is what it needs to be.
But you said it had to be a national restaurant. That's what you just said.
Okay.
So what is there a tenant for the building?
Does it in fact have to be, Mr. Anderson, does it have to be a national chain or can it be a local chain?
It can be a local chain, but it has to be a chain restaurant is what the board wanted to see.
But not necessarily national.
We're going to incentivize chain restaurant. That's what you're telling me. That's what we're wanting to do. That's what your instructions are. I'm trying to understand. I mean, we're incentivizing chain restaurants. I don't know.
The EDC board would like to see a restaurant in there. They felt like that by getting a specific type of restaurant, that it would have the highest return on it. They're not against a local restaurant by any means, and if there was one that they presented that they got, I'm sure that the board would be happy to approve that and make that adjustment in there. What they didn't want to...
Oh, go ahead, I'm sorry, go ahead.
What they didn't want to see is that they wanted to ensure that it was going to be a quality product that goes in there, whether it be small or whether it be large, in terms of being national or local.
I don't see how we can vote on this without really seeing the numbers. I don't think it's fair to ask us to vote on this tonight without seeing those in advance.
Point taken. I have a question almost along those lines. Looking at the building and look at the $157,000 that is possible, that's being requested. Is it okay for them to explain where that $157,000 is going to be used, other than tearing down the smokehouse?
Oh, without a doubt. And yes, sir, and if you would like
to... It almost goes back to Mr. Cooks's comment, renderings of what the future would look like really helped on the prior item. Okay. So looking at that, and then the $157,000 is not just for demo of the smokehouse, of the smoke portion.
That is correct, and I'll invite the applicant up. I would just like to first point out in your staff report, it does give a list of those items that it talks about the concrete, the demolition, the paint, the roofing, and the canopy quote. So with that, I'll invite the applicant. Waylon, if you'd like to come up.
Hi, Waylon Longino, Dallas, Texas.
I want to flip that mic up just a little bit. There you go.
Perfect, so better. Here to answer any questions you guys may have, and particularly those costs are that you guys have been provided is exactly what she said. They're just exterior. There's nothing to do interior. It doesn't include. We're adding this drive-through tower and moving that forward on the exterior. It doesn't include all the metal mesh. It doesn't include the storefront glass. It doesn't include the patio railing that we're going to put out front. It's really demolition, paint, roofing, reworking the roofing to accommodate a drive-through, and repouring concrete for the drive-through lanes and modifying the parking accordingly to accommodate that. We'll be spending over $1.2 million on the whole renovation of it. And that doesn't include any tenant finish out inside, so other than providing basic utilities to the space. What else can I tell you?
The intent is to have a single tenant?
No, two tenant.
Two tenants?
Two-tenant building, yes. So the demising wall is kind of, you see that shade on the, shading on the storefront, kind of where the A-frame roof
Yeah, I'm
is?
trying to see the front elevator. Okay, there's a double door on the right and a single door on the left?
That's true, yes.
That's just, I just understand
right,
it's
that's right.
rendering, but it's intended for two tenants.
Correct.
And would both tenants have drive-through access then?
No. Just the tenant, if you're looking at the page on the left with the drive-through, would only want to have access to the drive-through.
Guess I'm just thinking logistically, how's all that, two tenants and two drive-throughs, just,
No, just a single drive-through.
okay, all right. Thank you. Mr. Cooks?
Are you able to share the tenant, the one national tenant, if you hadn't already shared? Who's going to be in there?
They would rather we not, but it sounds like everybody wants to know, so it is Starbucks.
Okay. So I've seen some great projects with Starbucks, particularly even the one that you just completed on Camp Wisdom Road. Tell us a little bit about that, and how does it relate to this proposed project that you're wanting to do now?
Well, both of those stores, this store would be owned by Starbucks. It's not a franchisee. Starbucks owns all of their stores that you see, except for the ones that are inside of grocery stores, like an Albertsons or a Target. Those are owned by Target or Albertsons. They're just licensed. So it will be a company-owned store. So you're not, it comes with the same incentives, same pay and the same, college programs that they have. If you work, 20 hours a week, they, pay for college educations. They give you full health care benefits if you work 20 hours or more. So, it's the real deal. It's not some mom and pop getting branded as Starbucks. Other than that, I think you're referring to the one at Redbird?
Yes.
The Redbird one is a unique store within itself. There are probably, I think, 12 of those in the country that involves the community, and Terrence knows. He was instrumental in having that store built, but it won't be the same as that as far as that goes, but it will be a company-owned store. That's the commonality.
So the cost is different from the Redbird on Camp Wisdom versus the one you want to propose to build in Duncanville?
I don't know that the costs are definitely different. I think Redbird's a little bit larger square footage because they do some different things than a typical Starbucks. But as far as the interior finish out goes, I mean, they don't hold back on any of those. If it's in, small town America with 2,000 people, or Dallas with, 5 million people, it's the same. They spend the same dollars on the inside finishing them.
I've seen some success with Starbucks and who they select as a partner to be right next to them. Can you give us some examples of partners where you have Starbucks and then right beside them is something else? Some examples of what you've seen.
Yeah, I've built, a number of them. Chipotle, I've had smoothie places, I've had pizza restaurants, I've had cellular stores, dental users. I'm trying to think of who else. Anybody that really doesn't compete in the morning. Honestly, everybody likes to be by them because they create a lot of traffic.
You have banks?
Banks do, but this is restricted from a bank. So
I know Terrence probably didn't want that, but Tim probably didn't want that one.
But you could, insurance companies, you name it. But preferably, we're seeking retail or restaurant to be a neighbor.
The reason I ask that, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, normally what I've seen Starbucks and a partner who's right next to them, it becomes a very high marketable spot because the Starbucks is there. Have you seen one that has not had that success?
Not off the top of my head, no.
All right, thank you.
Ms. James, and maybe stay up there with him, I'm not sure. You mentioned that your personal investment in terms of corporate is going to be about $1.7 million. Did I understand that correctly?
Actually, more than that. The total project cost is 2.7, almost 2.8.
Okay, so
That includes land.
when the third-party evaluation was done and the algorithm performed, is it coincidental that the 157,000 is roughly 10% of their personal investment, or that just, how did that work?
No, that was a coincidence because, as you know, since you were on the EDC board, that typically they look at different amounts. The board looks at a variety of amounts, and typically they don't do, they can, but typically they haven't done more than 70%. And so it just worked out that 70%. It was just coincidental.
Okay. So the 157,000 is much less than 10% by $123,000 roughly, based on my calculations. Okay. Ms. Jameson?
Oh, I was going to ask you, did you build the one, I think it's Ovilla, where the Chipotle and it looks like this?
I built the first one in Red Oak. No.
Or is it Red Oak? It's
Yeah,
right,
in
you
Red
know what I'm
Oak,
talking about?
Ovilla Road.
Yeah.
I know exactly what you're talking about, yes. But
And
I built the one in Ennis. If you've ever been there, that was Chipotle and Starbucks. But I've built, almost 80 Starbucks over time. So I'm very familiar.
They're pretty busy, but they also have Chick-fil-A next door. There's a, parking lot between, and then Chick-fil-A, McDonald's.
And Express. Yeah, I'm familiar with the
Yeah,
intersection.
they have a lot of vendors right there, but it looks like that, very similar.
Mr. Anderson?
So you're going to have nearly $1,000 a square foot in this property or whatever? Is that what you're saying?
It is 40, what is it, 40, once we demo
2.8 million.
everything, I think we're about 4,800, 4,900 square feet.
It's bigger than I thought, so.
Yeah.
So you're still
So
going to have
what-
like $700 or $800 a square foot in it then? That's
What is that
Ain't
math?
it?
Yeah, I can.
It's
tough.
close, isn't it?
Yeah, somewhere around there. Yeah, it's expensive.
Mr. Mayor, I have a couple of comments here. First of all, no numbers to look at. I don't think it's fair to ask us to do this. To incentivize, driving through town for, I mean, it's fine that Starbucks has the right to go there and get their coffee and go, but to incentivize people to come through town, get their stuff and go, to me, it just does not make sense for good economic development policy. The incentives ought to be for people in the center of town, ought to be for the people who actually need it, locals who need this kind of incentive. I think this is bad business to do this. And I know it's normal and it seems like the Economic Development Corporation is just the bank of the city, just come get your money. I think it's bad policy. And for that, I'll be voting against this. In fact, I would like to make a motion to deny this request.
Motion has been made to deny the request. Is there a second? Motion has been made to deny the request, and there has been a second. Okay, understand what's going to be happening now, how the vote is going to be going. I've had to do this a couple times when motions have been made to deny what's been put forward to us to approve. So, motion to deny.
To get the figures that they were presented with, of the kind of revenue that it would bring in?
We could, in terms of my comment in relation to Mr. Anderson's concern, my comment is that I believe that the EDC and the Economic Development Corporation office itself has performed due diligence in this respect in terms of examining the numbers and the finances, and it is not necessary for this council to delve deeper into the due dilicence of what
But
the
if we'd like to
EDC
see them,
has deemed
then
right.
we can.
You could. Now we're in this in particular state. If this motion to deny is approved, then there has to be a subsequent motion to either approve or do something else with the item that's on the table.
Well, and that's
Okay.
what I'm suggesting, is that maybe we modify the motion and pull it with him being able to see the figures that were presented to the Economic Development
Well,
Board.
Mr. City Attorney, please
You have
clarify,
a-
because
you
I
have a
believe what
motion,
has to
but
be
you
happening
could-
is we have to work on the first motion and see if there's an amendment.
Unless
or if
there's
not.
an amendment or a motion to postpone or table takes precedent under Robert's rules.
I can barely hear you, please.
I said a motion to table or postpone or a motion to amend takes precedent over the motion that's on the floor.
So, Ms. Jameson, according to our city attorney, if you wish to amend the motion that's been made to deny, you take precedent over that motion if you wish to do so.
Well, Monty, you want to modify your motion to table it until you get the figures to see, or?
No, I don't. No, I mean, to me, it's bad. It's bad. I want the public to hear this. I believe this is bad economic development policy. I'm against it philosophically. I don't think the numbers, I said, if we're going to look at something, we ought to look at the numbers. If we're going to be the ones responsible for $157,000, I think it's very reasonable to ask the Economic Development Board and the Economic Development Director to show us those numbers. We're asked to do this blindly. That's
Well,
not right.
that's why I was asking if you want to amend
Well, he
your motion.
chooses not to,
I
so
don't.
if you want to make it a motion to amend, it would be yours, Ms. Jameson.
Well, he has to agree to it.
No, he
Have his-
doesn't.
He doesn't have to agree to have his motion amended?
Yes, he does to that, but if you amend, you can make a motion to amend his motion, or you can make a motion to table his motion. And that takes precedent over the motion that's on the floor.
Well, then, I guess I make a motion to table it until we can look at the figures that were presented to the Economic Development Board.
Okay, we have a motion. I'll try to reiterate as best as I can from Ms. Jameson's what she said. We have a motion on the table to table this particular item so that the Economic Development Corporation Board can provide provide council with the information being requested. However, I will go back to a statement that Ms. James made in terms of that information is confidential. In terms of how it is disclosed to this council, I'm not sure exactly how to do that. Because anything presented to the council, I guess it could be done in executive session because it is related to property. So I just want to get things, so there's a clear understanding among all of us what we're doing.
It's my understanding that it's sales tax information. That's confidential by law. So that information cannot be shared with anyone because
Even in
it's
executive
confidential. It's because revenue is disclosed of retail providers in your community. And if that information becomes public, then their private corporation matters become public.
But the
So it has to be
information,
done.
the information being requested is, what I understand from Mr. Anderson, is the third-party evaluation of the algorithms and how those monies, how that process, or what the process was actually done, with not disclosing any revenues or taxes
Yeah,
that
you
are
will if
coming.
you see the logarithms, and that's my understanding. You wanted to see the information. The information's all the information, not just selected information. But
Teacher,
they
we can't hear
received,
you.
that's what they received also.
No,
So
they received an how would you know what that's going to do? They've not been in business, so you're extrapolating from something.
The information that was provided in order to run the analysis does take into account sales tax information, and yes, ma'am, that is provided within the report by the applicant. Yes, sir.
Now, wait a minute.
So the Economic Development Board can see it, but we can't see it? Is that, I mean, that doesn't make sense.
I know that when Mr. Cooks and I were on the Economic Development Board, we weren't allowed, we did not see that information.
How
can you
how
get money?
how can you do this? How can we agree to do something we don't get to see? That's ridiculous.
I didn't say.
Call for question.
The question is not whether you can see it or not, is whether or not you disclose it, and under the circumstances of which it's disclosed. It can be disclosed in a closed executive session under 551.087. as an analysis to make an economic development grant, which this would be. But each one of you either receive that information in closed executive session under that exception, and you have to agree not to disclose it because of the information that's provided, because the extrapolation of the information, when made available to you, would allow someone to then gain knowledge about possible competitors' businesses. And the state law says that sales tax revenue information is confidential.
But we're accustomed to going to executive session. That's not new.
I understand, but I want you to understand there's also a very severe consequence by disclosing this information, maybe some more, and it goes outside attorney-client privilege, and it goes outside, it becomes criminal matter if that information is disclosed.
But you wouldn't disclose executive session information, period.
It's not a crime. This is a crime. So I'm just warning you, I'm not arguing with you.
Is it possible?
I want you to have whatever you think you need, but this information comes with a price. I don't want the public to think that I'm trying to hide anything. I'm not. The information's confidential by law. It's to protect the retailers so they accurately report their sales tax information so that we can collect their sales tax.
So the only information that the council, if this moves forward, is requesting to see is the same information that the EDC board saw. So if the EDC board saw that information, then the council itself could see it in closed executive session, but we could be able to see without any external parameters, we could see what the EDC board saw. Okay. So that's good enough. That's as deep as we can legally go.
I'm not sure that's what Councilman Bond is asking for.
Maybe it's not what he's asking, but that's all that's permitted. So is it possible then to create an amended motion that Ms. Jameson is looking for to provide the correct language so that we clearly understand what would be going forward in terms of tabling this pending the council being provided the same information the EDC board was provided, and doing so in executive session since it relates to real estate?
I will suggest to you that the council would make a motion, or Ms. Jameson's motion would be a motion to postpone this until the council's had a chance to review the information that was provided by the EDC.
Do you agree with that?
That's good.
Okay, so Ms. Jameson's amended motion is to postpone this item until the additional information can be provided to the council.
Technically, it's not an amended motion. It's a motion that takes precedent.
Okay, so there's a...
And it must receive a second.
Ms. Jameson's motion is to postpone this item until the council has provided the information the EDC board was provided. Is there a second?
Thanks, Mark.
Seeing no second, that motion has failed. Then we go back to...
Primary motion's on the table, Mayor.
Primary motion is on the table. That is Mr. Anderson's motion. Mr. Anderson's motion is to deny the request. So I will once again clarify in terms of the voting process so that we don't make any mistakes. The motion has been made to deny. So therefore, if the council member votes yes, the denial is validated. If the council votes no, if the council member votes no, the denial is vacated. Understood?
And then for you to consider to approve it, you would need a second motion if it
exactly.
did fail.
I understand that, okay?
So, I'm sorry, go back. So if
Mr. Anderson's motion has been made to deny. Therefore, if you vote yes, you agree with Mr. Anderson to deny this. If you vote no, you disagree with Mr. Anderson to deny this. All clear? Please vote. The motion has failed. Chair will entertain a motion to approve.
Move to approve.
We have a motion to approve. Is there a second? We have a motion to approve, and we have a second. This is standard now. If you vote yes, you are approving this particular item. Please vote. Motion is approved. Thank you very much. so that we all understand where we're moving now. We are moving into item number 5, items for individual consideration. I would like to make a suggestion to the council, if I may. We are leading into 2 public hearings, and item 5E, is considering the resolution supporting the Census Bureau complete count committee, and it also includes nominating an individual to chair that committee. And I think the individual involved in that is present, and to give that individual, so they don't have to sit through the rest of this, I'm suggesting that we move to item 5E and then move back to the public hearings, if that's acceptable to everyone. Do I need a motion for that?
No, Mayor, you can state that unless anyone wants to challenge you by making a point of order and doing something different, you're running the meeting.
Okay. So I do suggest, in deference to the time and the individuals, that we move to item 5E. Are we ready to pull it up? Have we found it? Ready? Okay. Item 5E. Consider a resolution supporting the United States Census Bureau for the United States 2020 Census Campaign, establishing a complete count committee, (CCC), and appointing a committee chairperson. Ms. Chastity Allen Benson.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Chastity Allen Benson, City Planner. At the July 16th City Council meeting, the Council did adopt a resolution in support of the 2020 census. And the purpose of the resolution tonight is just to formally establish the CCC and, as the Mayor mentioned, allow Council to appoint the chair of that committee. The Complete Count Committee will operate under the auspices of the U.S. Census Bureau, so it wouldn't be subject to the Open Meetings Act in terms of quorum and things of that nature, which I know was a concern related to the committee meeting. And as the Mayor mentioned, we do have a person here interested in serving in that role, and of course the resolution would give Council the opportunity to appoint a chair for that committee. Again, staff does recommend approval of establishing the CCC and appointing a chairperson.
Go back one, please.
This is just additional background information that was provided at the last council meeting.
The last bullet, you're concerned about the last bullet? Because it is under the auspices of the Census Bureau.
It's a federal, yeah. Correct. Oh, no, it does not.
No, it does not.
Yeah.
Right.
No, it does not.
So it eases the requirements for them to have a quorum and open meetings and all that.
Correct.
Okay. It is my personal recommendation to nominate an individual for this position. This individual has spoken before council before, and this individual has experience in the census and as part of complete count committees in the past. And it is my pleasure and honor to present to the City Council the individual I nominate to chair this complete count committee, and that is Ms. Madeline Kelly Schwach. Ms. Schwach, would you please come forward?
You made a motion. Are you making a motion?
I am making a motion. Yeah, thank you very much. I am making a motion to that the council appoint Ms. Madeline Kelly Schwach as the chairperson for the City of Duncanville on the Complete Count Committee in going with the United States Census Bureau.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. I guess we...
Am I supposed to say something?
Not yet. You really don't need to. Is there any discussion? No discussion, and please vote. Motion is passed. Ms. Kelly Schwach, thank you for volunteering to do this.
You're welcome.
Because
I look forward to getting the whole community involved with this.
Well, you're a very special individual, and we appreciate that. And, you know, I will add that Mr. Cooks and I were present last night at a reception for the entire Dallas City Council and the new mayor. And there were other mayors there, and there was also a very strong, emphatic statement made about how important the census is. Not just to our city, but to the entire Dallas County. There are billions of dollars at stake in terms of federal monies coming to this county, coming to our cities, and this is so very, very important. So we don't underestimate the importance of the Complete Count Committee and the work that you're going to be putting into this.
Well, my experience in the 2010 census as a partnership specialist was that if I had not had the people from the 17 cities in eastern Tarrant County that I worked with, if I didn't have those committees, there's no way that I could have gotten the word out and gotten the information out to all of the people in the community that we tried to get it out to without the help of community members being involved in that in some kind of way. So it's very important that that committee
On behalf of the
works that way.
council and unanimous vote, thank you very much. We appreciate it. Okay, moving back to item 5A. Item 5A, I know whoever's running the slides is having a field day with us today. I'll let them catch up. Item 5A, consider a public hearing and consider an ordinance to amend the existing neighborhood office, quote, in quotes, NO district zoning to include a specific use SU permit to allow a daycare center on Block 1, Lot 4, GCS Estates, Duncanville, more commonly known as 707 Cedar Ridge Drive. Ms. Benson.
The request before you tonight is a request for an SUP on the property at 707 South Cedar Ridge. The applicant, Mr. Mariostik, is present as well to answer any additional questions outside of my presentation. The property is undeveloped at this time, and they're proposing to construct a 10,584 square foot building on the property. Child Care Network will be the occupant, and they currently occupy 703 South Cedar Ridge as a tenant. They do not own that property that is adjacent to the subject property. The 703 facility was constructed in 1975, and so this facility will meet the size and operational needs of this proposed tenant. The property is within Opportunity Area 4 within the comprehensive plan, which extends along South Cedar Ridge. And one of the major strategies is to encourage new construction and redevelopment along our major corridors. The proposed use of retail and personal service types of uses is consistent with those uses that are recommended. This is the area of request. The property is just north of the post office, and it is bordered to the west by single-family residential, and then there are some retail uses to the north. Again, the property in the red at SUP ordinance number 591, that was the daycare that was approved back in actually the SUP was approved in 74, and the building was constructed in 75. And there's the aerial there. The site plan does take into account meeting all of the requirements as it relates to the zoning ordinance for parking and loading. The Planning and Zoning Commission did want to ensure that there would be spaces marked for their private vans that they use for transporting children for after school, before school and after school care, and that would be provided on their site plans that have to be approved by city staff. The site is, traffic is a right in and right out only due to the existing median on Cedar Ridge. Again, as I mentioned, the surrounding land uses, property to the west is zoned residential. The proposed, or the existing daycare is on the north side of the subject property. Again, the facility was constructed some time ago, and the tenant has simply just outgrown that space for this particular use. The specific use permits can be granted for a limited or unlimited time period. It's at the discretion of the council. Planning and Zoning Commission did recommend not setting a time frame, particularly because this tenant has established themselves in this community for a few decades now, and so they're seem to be stable, and so they propose to not have a time period limitation on the specific use permit. As Mr. Hager did note that at any point, council can rescind or call into question an SUP, so just because there is no set time limit does not mean that it can't be revisited at some point. There were 16 notices that were sent out for the public hearing. We did receive 2 responses in opposition, but they were actually the same person. They were included in your packet, and that is the owner of the 703 South Cedar Ridge. This is the proposed site plan, which does show the site with the parking and the drive, the play area, as well as detention. The applicant will be required to meet all requirements as it relates to zoning, building code, fire code, and all of our engineering requirements, which will address drainage with civil plans that have to be submitted and approved by our Public Works Department. This is the proposed floor plan showing the property again. It is approximately a little over 10,000 square feet, and these are some elevations that are being proposed. The Planning and Zoning Commission did recommend approval of the ordinance amending the zoning. So again, the specific use permit for the daycare would be along with these proposed conditions. I will also note that the property to the north that is with the 703 South Cedar Ridge, the SUP that's there, the underlying zoning is still there. So any neighborhood office use could occupy that building once it is vacated. So I just wanted to make mention of that as well. I'm available for questions, and the applicant is present.
Mr. Harvey.
Thank you, Chastity.
Yes.
So on this property, a new daycare center is going to be built, and the group that's in the current daycare facility are going to move to the new facility.
Correct.
What's going to happen to the old facility?
It will not be occupied, so it could be reoccupied with, like I mentioned, any neighborhood office use. Because there was no time limit on their original SUP, it could conceivably be occupied with another daycare unless council moves to rescind that SUP on the 703 South Cedar Ridge property.
Oh, they render it again, please. 1, 2, 3.
Okay, this is a public hearing, so seeing no further comments at this time from council, I will open the public hearing at 8:40. And, sorry. Oh, yeah, I guess, is the applicant here? Would the applicant like to address us, please? Can this be part of the public hearing? Yes, okay. So you are not confined to 2 minutes?
I won't take too long. Good evening. My name is Walter Matty Ostick. I live at 1520 Thomas Place in Fort Worth, Texas. And I am the owner of the property. I've owned the property for a couple of years now. I bought it with the intent of building the daycare there, working with Child Care Network. It's important to know that Child Care Network is looking after the benefit of the parents and the kids by doing it this way. They want to be able to transfer the children over without any hiccups because they need the new facility to operate the business properly. But with children, you can't do renovations to a facility while children are coming in and out. It's just not safe. So what we're able to do now is to build them a brand new facility, as you can see, which meets all the city requirements. It's 100% masonry. It's got the fire systems. It's going to be impeccable. The street presence of it, right next to the right next to the post office, on a piece of land that's been vacant for a very long time. I've spoken with a neighbor behind me, and there's water issues that we're addressing as well by putting a detention pond. So we're actually improving that area quite a bit by adding this facility to it. It's all, obviously we're adding a tax base to the city. That's just a raw piece of land. I know because I pay the taxes on it. It's going to go up quite a bit once we build this building. But most importantly, it's providing a service to the parents and the kids. It's doing something that they're going to have for another 40-plus years. That's going to be a substantially solid building, all masonry. So it's going to stand the test of time, and it's going to be a benefit to the city in general. Spending a substantial amount of money on it, but it's well worth it.
I am confused on one point. Do the existing child care center is going to be moving into this new child care center?
Yes, sir.
You own the property the new child care center is going to. Do you own the property of the old child care center?
No, sir. I think that's the one who submitted the letter against me. So I do not own the existing facility.
But
they are a tenant. Child Care Network is a
They're
tenant,
a tenant
for the current owner of their building. They are leasing. I'm building this custom built for them. So I'll be the landlord for the new building, and they've signed a 20-year lease. They're not going anywhere. They just want to be able to have the facilities up to the standards of 2019, not 1974. So that's the motivation behind this.
Okay, I did notice on the, I guess I would call it the engineering spec, a detention pond, which I thought was interesting, but you just addressed it in your comments. I guess there's already been some evaluation of the property that there's possible flooding. That's why a detention pond is necessary.
Actually, one of the neighbors who is here tonight, hopefully she's speaking on my behalf, Deborah, she lives right behind me. Apparently there's a water issue already that runs through this property. If you looked at the aerial of the properties.
Okay.
It's really the house right behind it. We are putting a detention pond right in there to prevent any existing water from running in there. I also brought my engineer with me tonight to answer any questions if you have about the detention pond. We're actually going to improve the flow over what it is now. Even though we're building a structure out there, which normally creates more water flow,
right,
we're actually detaining more water than is currently running through their property. So it's going to improve their situation. Also, what we are doing along the back of the property, ordinance requires a minimum of 6-foot height fence, up to 8 foot. We're putting 8 foot tall. So we minimize any impact on the neighbors behind us and make it look as pretty as we possibly can. Because we don't, this is a neighborhood business. If you're not going to be a good neighbor, you're not going to be a good business. So we're trying to do everything we can to minimize that impact.
Okay. Thank you. Any further questions of this individual? The applicant?
The screen, what material is it going to be?
It'll be masonry. Yeah, we don't want anything that's going to, much like the building, we don't want anything that's going to require a lot of maintenance. It'll be two-sided as well, so the neighbors will be looking at a nice fence, and we'll look at one. We're going to have to take it a few, there's a bunch of trees back there, so we'll have to clear a path, and so there's going to be, we're going to keep as many trees as we can to keep the canopy, but we'll have to clear it out enough to put a fence in.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Deborah Bixel. And please state your name and address for us, please.
Deborah Bixel, 710 Kensington Drive, Duncanville, Texas. Honorable Mayor and distinguished council members, my husband and I had bought this house 30 years ago. We've always had that vacant lot back there, and it's been very nice. It's nice and quiet. Through our time, there's been numerous times where the planning and zoning, or whomever may own it, would like to change the zoning. It was at one point a two-story, that they wanted to make a two-story building that would look into our property. A second was a car wash. So on our third trip around here, I think that we've got a compatible match, a good neighbor. He and I have discussed on the phone various points of interest. If we do go back to the slide of 22, you can see the post office in the area of request. Right behind that area, that is our swimming pool.
I was wondering what, that's that small blue-green dot there.
That is a nice size backyard on the other side of a creek, okay? There's a creek that runs from Rotary Park, which is even way up beyond, but there is a lot of water flow that comes through on either side of our property. Water does run very quickly, and especially with this last series of rains, we really got to see it coming very quickly. So with the retention pond back there, that hopefully will keep us from having a lot of excess rain immediately in that creek. That would be an area of concern, though, that it is the city's property. So that would be something, and there is a sewage drain that runs right in our property. So I can't really say. I have retaining walls. We've done retaining walls, so we keep that property from washing away when it rains. But at this point, I am speaking on behalf of him. I do think that we can reach, that they're going to be good neighbors. We already have a daycare, and we hear the children playing. You know, there's not any disruptive behavior or anything that goes on in that area. So we welcome them as a neighbor and hope that you will approve his request.
Thank you.
Also,
Yeah.
that you will have a wonderful view of the fireworks. Because this year, I don't know if you've changed them, the location, but we were able to see fireworks from the backyard, which has been a long time coming.
Thank you for that. Ms. Bixel, I want to give you some assurance that what we have seen these are preliminary engineering drawings.
Sure.
And before they go final into specific engineering and architectural drawings, they will be scrutinized to the nth degree to make sure everything's going to be done so that that detention pond does its job, and the flowing of water is going to be protective of your property and this property as well. I want you to know that our staff is going to do everything necessary to make sure
That's wonderful
it's best.
to know.
It's done best.
I would welcome anyone to come back and see the setup that is there at this point in time, and just make sure that nothing is left unlooked at.
Great. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you.
The public hearing is still open. Does any further individuals wish to speak? Seeing none, I'll accept a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
We have a motion to close, and we have a second. Please vote. Hearing is closed. Yeah, any further, if there's no further discussion, the chair will entertain a motion to approve.
Make a motion to approve of the
Second.
daycare.
We have a motion to approve in a second. This is item 5A. Please vote. Motion has passed. Thank you very much. Moving on to item 5B. Conduct a public hearing and consider an ordinance to amend the existing general retail, quotes, GR zoning, to include a specific use permit SU renewal for auto leasing and with vehicles on display and car rental on Lot 23, Wood Hills Addition, Duncanville, more commonly known as 710 East Highway 67. Ms. Benson.
Mayor and Council, again, this request is for a renewal of a specific use permit for a car rental located on Highway 67. The original SUP was approved 15 years ago, and it's set to, expired on August 3rd. And so the applicant is coming forward requesting renewal of the specific use permit. There are no proposed changes to the building or the business operation. It does present a retail commercial development along 67, which is consistent with what what the comprehensive plan envisions for Highway 67. Again, this is the area of request and the existing property. It is surrounded by general retail zoning. There are some commercial uses immediately adjacent to the subject property. There is the VFW that is at 702 that has a special use permit on it, but primarily it is surrounded by general retail zoning. Again, this is the aerial of the property. The existing site, again, there are no proposed changes. There was a site plan that was approved with the original ordinance that the applicant resubmitted for consideration that it shows some future parking that could be accommodated on the site should they have additional parking needs. As Councilman Jameson mentioned during the briefing session, the specific use permit does not have to be approved for a time period. That is up to the discretion of the council. P&Z did recommend approval without a limited time period for the particular use. 6 notices were sent out for the public hearing, and we did not receive any responses. Again, that's the existing site plan that was approved with the original SUP. Planning and Zoning Commission did unanimously recommend approval of the renewal for the car rental with the proposed conditions that are in your staff report. And I'm available for questions, and I believe we have a representative, Ms. Cruz, representative here from Avis Budget Rental if there are any questions.
Would the applicant like to express any opinions to the council?
Yeah. It's the same owner, right? The same owner? The owner has not changed, is that correct?
The owners have changed.
The owner's just changed?
Yes.
Oh, okay. When did that happen?
I would say that.
Oh, okay. All right, thank you.
Seeing as how there is no further individuals who wish to speak on this matter, I don't believe we actually have to open public hearing. We do have to. Yes, we do. Okay. So the public hearing is opened at 8:54. Anyone who wishes to speak on this item, please come forward. Seeing none, the chair will accept a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
We have a motion to close the public hearing. A second, please vote. Public hearing is closed. Chair will accept a motion to approve.
Motion approved.
We have a motion to approve, and we have a second. Please vote. Thank you. Item 5B has been approved. As we mentioned earlier, items 5C and 5D have been postponed. We have taken care of item 5E. Executive session is going to be done with later, so we'll move on to item 6, staff and board reports. Item A, received the monthly financial report as of June 30th, 2019. Mr. Summerlin.
To the June financial report. We always look at where we're at, so we've completed 9 months of the fiscal year as of June 30th, and so we should have a benchmark at about 75% of revenues and expenditures. Some of the highlights from the general fund is that our ending unreserved fund balance is $12.8 million. That's 155 days of operations, and about $6.2 million in excess of the 75-day reserve. Keep in mind that we do receive our property tax early in the year, and so we're spending down that money as we go throughout the year. And so the remaining 3 months, you'll see that come down much closer to the 75-day target. Our sales tax revenues at about 56% of the budget, and the data that we have here reflects 7 months, which would be 58% of revenue, because keep in mind we're always 2 months behind are in arrears with receiving our sales tax from the state. And overall, the general fund expenditures are at 61.7% of the budget, so they're comfortably below that 75% benchmark. So we map out our general fund revenues. The purple line, of course, is the revenues if they were earned straight line over the course of the year. And then the blue line is a 3-year average, and the red line are the actuals. You see that spike up there in the December, January, February time frame when we're receiving the property tax. Laser that out on the next slide, and you see that our property tax, of course, goes up and then dramatically levels off through the last few months of the year. If we look at our general fund revenue sales tax, you see that we've, because we're behind those 2 months, we're trending up toward our total budget. It does look like we're going to be somewhere in the 1.5% to 2% below our revenues from last year on sales tax. And then this is the general fund expenditure as it's mapped out. Same story as before. The red line is tracking right along and a nice comfortable margin below the straight line. In the utility fund, our ending unreserved fund balance is $3.4 million. That's 67 days of operations based on the adopted budget, and that's about $3 million in excess of our 60-day fund balance target. Our utility solid waste revenues have a month delay due to our billing process, so there's basically 8 months of revenue that are reflected at the moment. And overall, our utility fund expenditures are at 66.9% of the budget, so again, comfortably below that 75% benchmark. This is the same as the general fund, looking at how the revenues are performing. We were doing a little bit of analysis today. I know we've been asked a couple questions. Well, are we going to meet our revenues because we've had so much rainfall this year? And we did see that's not reflected here. This past month, we've seen a fair amount of increase in our revenues because people are starting to use a little bit more water as we are drying out here. So I feel like we're going to get very close to our target budget. Utility fund expenditures, again, those are tracking, the actuals are tracking well below what our budget is, or a comfortable margin below the budget. If we look at our one-time projects, those that are highlighted in yellow here are essentially those that are complete, and then so we have the remaining budget at this point in time. For those that are completed, we have about $80,000 in surplus that could be used for other projects in the one-time project fund. And then we have the remaining projects that are either partially underway or haven't been started yet. Would like to talk about the capital improvement project report. This is a new report that we put in the packet this month. It's a new feature that we're able to get from our new Munis financial software. And the report shows the project to date totals, or the total amount that's spent to date on the projects, and then the far right, or next to the far right column. And then the far right column has the project to date budget, or the total project budget. And we will be including this on a quarterly basis so that there's not a lot of activity on a month-to-month basis, so we'll just be providing that on a quarterly basis. And I'll answer any questions.
I have a question. Just from a business guy's perspective and looking for a P&L somewhere, the $21.6 million for the bond, how does that bond money show up anywhere in our financials? Is it an income line, or is it, where does that go?
Well, it's in its own fund, if you will, in terms of the cash amount. And then we have project funds that are set up to track those expenditures. And we have, essentially, I have a very complicated strata of investments that has that money invested out, timed out when we expect to need that money, so that I have maturities on CDs, et cetera, happening that coincide with that.
So, from a neophyte's perspective, that $21.6 million as a bond, does it show up on a single line and for a single time as $21.6 million, or is it only showing up as the money is drawn from the bond and brought into the system to be used for an expenditure against the particular project?
Well, no,
did I make any sense?
Yeah, it does. When we sold the bonds, it's kind of like closing on the house from a mortgage perspective, that we got all the funds, so we got all the cash that was paid to us up front. And so that's the money that I'm speaking of when I talk about having it invested. And so it's all accounted for in the bond CIP project fund. And then we have multiple projects that track those expenditures as they'll be expended out. Part of that is reflected in this CIP project fund that you have at the back of.
Yeah, I noticed there was one line for Harrington, for Harrington Park, or no, not Harrington Park, Kidsville and Splash Pass. There was some monies expended for design for consultants' fees. So those were done before, that money was actually expended before the bond was passed. Yay? No?
Mayor, looking at the CIP.
I'm sorry, you missed it.
Looking at the CIP project sheet in the packet, for example, the Parks bond projects, they are listed. Right now, the only year-to-date expenditures on Parks bond projects was for the Rotary parking lot.
Okay.
So the funds that we have expended so far on consulting fees were money that was allocated in the general fund already for those projects.
Got
So
it.
we've not
Okay.
actually started expending bond project money on the Armstrong Park projects yet. Those will be coming soon.
Okay. So the bond tracker that's going to show up on the website is for public consumption, to be able to understand how this money is moving all the way across. Okay.
Correct.
Okay. Mr. Harvey?
Excuse me. Thank you, Mayor. I don't have a question per se in terms of the financials, but I do have a question, informational type question. In terms of the ability of the new financial software to collect costs, the costs are collected by fund, department, activity, project category. In other words, like for the bonds, does the system have the ability to capture each phase of the construction activity? Like for example, if there was utility, infrastructure move, and if there was material testing of the soil and that sort of thing, does the system have the ability to do that?
Yes, sir, it does. In fact, every single general ledger account that we have is available within each project fund to be utilized. So when people get ready to charge against that, they have the ability to split that up or to budget that and pay for it accordingly to the purposes.
Will the budget for the project be allocated accordingly, or is it just one single number?
For the most part, the project will be capitalized, and it'll be, it'll end up being one big number in the end. There may be multiple pieces that come together for that, but from a bookkeeping standpoint, it'll be one thing. We'll have.
The reason why I bring that up is because one of the objectives for project cost accounting would be in terms of helping the Public Works Department build estimates for like future projects. If the budget is broken down by individual category, then a historical database is built on that, and then Public Works can use that information in the future to do project estimates for future projects.
Got you.
All right, thank you.
Seeing no further questions, thank you very much.
Welcome.
Moving on to item 6B, receive the police department's quarterly report. Chief Lavigny.
Good evening, Mayor and the council. Tonight, Lieutenant Matt Stogner will be presenting our quarterly report. As a brief introduction, Lieutenant Stogner was hired by our department in 1998. In 2017, he was promoted to lieutenant. Currently, he commands our operations division, and he, among other things, he oversees our training and personnel, our animal control function, and is our SWAT commander. So with no further ado, Lieutenant Matt Stogner.
Welcome, Lieutenant.
Thank you. Get my book out real quick. I apologize. All right, I appreciate you guys listening to me here. Is my PowerPoint on the next one? Okay. There we are. All right, so to start off, June 15th, we administered a civil services entrance exam. 53 people took the written examination. 29 of those passed, and all 29 passed the newly implemented rower physical agility test. Being the commander of training and personnel, I see daily how hard our background investigators work. We understand the vacancies that we have and the importance of filling those. Of the 29 on our list, they've already processed 16. So we're halfway through the list, 6-7 weeks after the test. So they've been working very diligently to get people hired. We have completed 4 people of those 16 actually withdrawn from the process. And it was my opinion that all 4 most likely would have been hired. So that would have put a major deficit in our vacancies, because right now we sit at 9. So that will almost cut it in half. Now, and that's halfway through the list. Believe it or not, this is a really good list. In my opinion, seeing the names, we're looking at hiring possibly 2 or 3 off this list. So had the other 4 not resigned, we would have almost wiped out our current vacancy. Any questions on this slide? One of them actually was offered another job. Another one, all he provided is he had a better opportunity, and then the other 2 didn't provide us any information. All right, on to the next slide. These are our 2 officers that are currently attending COG, which is our Regional Police Academy. They're scheduled to graduate in October of 2019. After graduation, they'll immediately enter into our 3 weeks in-service class, which provides them, and we go over our city policies, regulations, city handbook, things of that nature, so they understand how we operate. And the academy is more general in the state of Texas, but obviously we have our own codes here that we deal with. Any question on that slide? The Dickey's Foundation, we worked this earlier this year. I was looking for information on some new SWAT body armor, and I came across Angel Armor, and he advised me of this foundation that we could apply for, where after the July 7th incident in Dallas, the Dickey's Foundation was created because she did not want any other agency to have to go through that. So the fortunate thing with these vests now is every officer will eventually rotate into these platforms, and it's actually rifle-rated armor that's concealable. So right now, we issue plate carriers where officers will have to stop, get out of their car, get in their trunk or whatever, and don this plate carrier before responding to a scene. Now they're actually wearing it throughout their entire patrol shift with the rifle-rated armor. Plus, it saved the city $20,501 for this. So it was a really good program. We also participate in the 7-Eleven Operation Chill. This has been going on for a long time. 7-Eleven provides departments with coupons. The officers carry these coupons with them. They're interacting with children. They'll hand these coupons out, which then the child can go to 7-Eleven, any 7-Eleven, exchange that for a Slurpee, which is nice for our heat. The Dallas Children's Advocacy Center, on the 2nd of May, Chief Brown assisted the DCAC with a program called Save Jane. The names of 27,456 alleged victims of child abuse or neglect in Dallas County were read in hopes of bringing attention to child abuse. And you see that number, and that's only within 1 year. So it's a great program and something that needs to be publicized. We held our Advanced Citizen Police Academy. From what I understand, we hold one of these a year. On April 23rd, we graduated our third with 40 participants. All the information that we've received is positive, and they want this to continue. This is the dedication of the new Enrichment Center at 800 Link Drive that the Assistant Chief and some other officers and the mayor was at. It's a good event to go to. And then the Safety Fair for our Progressive Roofing Company. The Whataburger Town Hall, the Whataburger Hometown Heroes event. That was a lot of fun. They had a DJ. I got to interact with a lot of children there. The Pickup Tailgate anti-theft event was a huge success. In fact, we're going to continue or do this again on our open house, which I'll get to later in the slides. Our activity between March and June 2019, we've had 9 use of force incidents. 8 were found to be lawful and within departmental policy, and 1 is currently being reviewed. We've had 2 vehicle pursuit, one of which was within our policy, and 1 outside department policy, which resulted in remedial training. We've had 2 complaints during that time period. 1 was an officer-involved shooting, and 1 was an internal investigation for a policy, which is currently being reviewed. So those are the community meetings and partnerships we've had through March and June. We've had 28 community meetings resulting in 5,037 partnerships. The next slide is, from what I understand, this is the first time that we're presenting the new NIBRS reporting system. So bear with me. If you have a question that I can't answer, we'll certainly get back and provide you with the answer. I certainly don't want to say something that's inaccurate.
We've actually been introduced to, it's me.
Oh, I'm sorry. I hear you back there.
Sorry. We've actually been introduced to this.
Okay, good.
Yeah, Chief Brown gave us an introduction to it.
Okay, good. Then we can just flip through these things pretty quick then, right? So these are the crimes, obviously, that they're wanting us to report. March through June, these are the crime statistics. Any questions in regards to this? So they've broken it down per district, give you a little bit better overview of what's going on. So it's March, and I believe we have it all the way through June. And if y'all need me to stop or go back, so we have May here, June. Mm-hmm.
One question, Lieutenant, on shoplifting. Do we do adequate training of retailers in our city to inform them about the right not to detain, not to touch? I mean, a lot of them do. I mean, a lot of people just want to go after somebody that's doing shoplifting. So I've had some training myself on that particular aspect from history, but do we find that any of our retailers, when they see a shoplifter, attempt to detain or physically touch an individual that they see as shoplifting, or do they just simply pick up the phone and call?
I think it's a mixture of both. I think if you have a company that has loss prevention officers there, they will detain them physically if they need to and contact us. And if the company doesn't employ loss prevention officers, then they'll just get on the phone and let us know what they're wearing and what they're driving and which way they're heading.
Do you ever see any complaints by the perpetrator against even an authorized individual in a retailer that's been trained to physically detain? Does any backlash ever happen from those kind of incidences?
Well, it's been several years since I've been on the street and answered those calls. I know there hasn't been anything that we've been advised of. They have the authority to physically detain someone in the prevention of further theft. But the only one that sticks out in my mind is when Walmart was over there, and that was many years ago. Other than that, sometimes you'll get these people who want to fight the loss prevention officers, but I rarely see that.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. I'm noticing that District 4 has a lot of, the total numbers are pretty high. Theft from mobile vehicles, but number one has been, what are we doing in that area?
I know our crime analyst and our CID commander and the detectives there. We have bait vehicles. We have the MSU truck that has cameras. They analyze these crimes and figure out the best spot to put them. And it's funny you mentioned in District 4, that's a major corridor there. Suspects look for easy targets, somewhere that they can quickly exit and quickly leave. And honestly, by the time we receive the call, they're probably in Midlothian. So it's just really quick unless the officer's right around the corner. But a lot of these suspects look at these major corridors, major thoroughfares where there's a lot of parking lots.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Harvey.
Appreciate your report. I have a question, and I don't know if you can answer it. Maybe, the Chief Lavigny can. But there's been so much talk about Senate Bill number 2 and revenue caps for cities. Was there anything that came out of the legislature this session that affected what the police does, how they operate, and how are you all addressing that?
That's something that I will have to, that's something that's above my pay grade, I'm assuming.
Well, so at this point, the best way I can answer that is there's constantly things that come out of legislative sessions that change the way we do things in law enforcement. I'm scheduled to go to a legal update on the 22nd of this month. I think we have 3 different ones scheduled for different supervisory personnel. If you've got a specific question, maybe I'm aware of something that came up, but no doubt there's going to be things that change the way we do things.
No, I'm just getting warmed up for budget.
Sure.
I may be wrong in my recollection, but in reading some of the details of HB 2, there were no exclusions provided for fire and
That's
law
my
enforcement.
understanding. There was no carve-out as far as...
yeah, there's no carve-out, meaning that, our budget system is going to have to accommodate. There's no way of basically grandfathering our law enforcement and fire, our first responders out of that 3.5.
Sure, pertaining to that
So it's going to be a
particular bill.
difficult budget situation for us.
Yeah. Yeah, there's no carve-out, and we're going to have to deal with it the best we can financially as a department, as the city does. But as far as other aspects of it, of how we do business, it'll change. It always does.
Ms. Jameson?
Well, I certainly don't want to share District 2's crime. However, you have Camp Wisdom on here going to 2, and it's in my district. So if there's any crime right there, that could be mine district. The boundary. You can give it to them, but
Just check the boundaries on the maps.
Oh, okay.
I was just looking at it and I was thinking, because we have a lot too, District 5, and I thought, well, we have a commercial on I-20. But you've given Camp Wisdom right there to District 2. And, yeah, just saying, they can keep that, however. It's high on vehicle. So I don't know what we can do about that.
Yeah, Mr. Hugman?
Lieutenant Stogner, do you want to comment or anything about thefts from motor vehicles? I know and I'll just say from what I see in the pass-down notes, the daily pass-down notes, I'm surprised. Well, I guess I shouldn't say I'm surprised, but I note a lot of times where the officer has noted that the doors were unlocked or the vehicle was unlocked or there was something of value left on the seats.
Absolutely, and it's like I said earlier, these suspects look for the easy targets, and the easy targets are in these corridors. You know, I know some people may have Ring cameras on their back of their houses or in the front of their houses. You'll see people walking down the street trying doors. They don't want to break out windows. They break out windows, what happens? It makes noise. Somebody may be awake. It directs people's attention to them. The light, high take. Or lock high take. That's extremely important to maintaining or to decreasing particular offenses, especially BMVs. I know on our social media or Facebook, we would send out information, the 9 p.m. routine, hopefully reminding citizens to make sure they go out and lock their doors or hide their stuff or take the stuff inside. It's easy targets. It's crime of opportunity.
I have a Fiat and convertible, and they used to tell me to leave the doors open because nothing in it, because they could do more damage cutting the top than if you just left the door open, nothing in it.
Well, there's, of course, you know, some people say, hey, I don't want my window broken, so I'll leave the door unlocked. But we deal specifically with people, the majority of them, being unlocked doors. And it's frustrating to us because it could have been prevented by simply locking the door or simply taking the valuables or something that's visible from the outside inside. That's the important thing.
Okay.
I would just like to, looking at this map and, you know, that I think that we ought to do a better job in designing our cities where there's more eyes on the street, and because, you know, there's more, you know, you can see where all the crime is. I mean, the crime is in these big parking lots on the freeways and things like that. You look into the city, into Main Street and stuff like that, there's very little crime, you know, and I just think I would hope that in the future, maybe this city would ask police and fire about design before we build things, so they can say, well, let's look at it and see what we can do to build it where it self-polices itself. And I would just a comment, so.
Sure.
Thank you. Any further questions?
We'll get this presentation, is that right, City Manager?
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry?
I was asking if we would get this presentation He said yes.
Yes.
Yes, I thanks.
Yeah, city secretary usually sends us the PowerPoints after the meetings. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, I'm sorry, I actually have two more things, if you don't mind.
Okay.
I would like to remind everyone, we'll be hosting two events coming up. Our first annual open house at the police department, which is scheduled for Saturday, August 31st from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. We'll have In-N-Out Burgers there, Kona Ice. They'll be able to go through our police department, look where we work, touch trucks, go on trucks, look at all of our equipment. In addition to that, we have another Citizens Police Academy scheduled to begin on August 27th. The Citizen Police Academy is 11 weeks long and exposes the attendees with an in-depth look at their police department. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Chief Rhodey, Fire Department Quarterly Report.
Evening, Council, Mayor, City Manager. Thank you all for letting me present the third quarter Fire Department report. Going to get started? I guess I'm not. Oh, there we go. Sorry about that. Start with staffing. Currently, I have 2 vacancies in the Fire Department. We held a civil service exam to try to get us an eligibility list back on July the 6th. And at that time, we did on July 19th, we did our personal history packets for our people, and they got them back. And currently this week, we're holding interviews to try to fill those 2 vacancies. I just have a new paramedic. He just got out of El Centro's paramedic school on Friday, July the 12th, and his name is Tyler Hosler. He's currently out riding the ambulance, and I'm very proud of this young man because we have to take a National Registry test for paramedic. It's a national test, and he was able to pass that test on the very first try. So I was very proud of him. It's a testimony to the type of employees that we try to hire. Also on July the 22nd, we sent 3 more individuals to paramedic school at El Centro, and probably we'll get them out of school sometime after the first of the year. Tanya Hunter and myself, we attended the Emergency Management Conference back in April 15th to the 18th. This is a very good conference because it introduces you to different mentalities on tornadoes, how to prepare for tornadoes, how to notify your public, and it even has sessions on terrorism to enlighten our emergency managers in our city as to things that are going on in town. PIP volunteer days, Chief Chase and myself volunteered to participate in the PIP back on April 16th. I had not participated before that, but I was glad I did it this time because the one I was on was very fulfilling. We actually tore a swimming pool, above ground swimming pool that was in the ground. We tore it out and removed the deck that was all around it and the fencing, and they replaced a very nice looking fence. So now the property looks very, very, very nice compared to what it did look like. Our EMS suite was from May 19th to the 25th. That's where our individuals, paramedics, are recognized for their duties in the field. They go to the hospitals and they're recognized at the hospitals and with dinner and gifts during that week. We had a damage assessment training with all of our staff back on April the 22nd, all the way from the city manager all the way down to our CERT teams, received training on how to go out and assess debris. We used some new devices. We were using iPads and software to be able to collect this data so that in case we do have that type of emergency, we can collect it all and be able to analyze what type of damage that we have sustained in the city. Tanya Hunter also held a hazard mitigation planning team meeting for the cities of Cedar Hill, DeSoto, and Duncanville and Lancaster back on May 1st to update our Dallas County Hazard Mitigation Action Plan. And then the fire department participated in a fire truck pool back on May the 18th. And unfortunately, our fire department team came in second place, but we were still enjoyed participating in. It was for the Special Olympics at Texas with the police department.
Who won first?
I believe it was the Grand Prairie team won first place. Yeah. We also, after we had that training, we had a
Which
full-scale.
means you got to do better, right?
Yes, sir. I'm almost embarrassed, but I thought I should tell you. We had a full-scale damage assessment exercise for the cities of Cedar Hill, Duncanville, and DeSoto. That's where we took that training back on the 22nd and actually applied it to a exercise. And our part of the exercise, we actually, if you look at that first slide, that's our command wagon out of DeSoto, and also their command battalion chief wagon. They were utilized to collect this data that we were out collecting in the field. And that middle slide, we actually went out with pictures of structures that had been destroyed in a tornado, and our CERT teams and our staff went out and actually filled this data out on these iPads and collected it and brought it into this command staff so they could get a good assessment of the actual destruction from the tornado from these 3 sites in Duncanville. It was very successful because we used drones and were able to find some of our networking issues that we had with some of these drones and our data, bringing it into that system. So it was a very good exercise for us to conduct with emergency management.
Do any of our staff actually, do any of our fire department actually staff that command vehicle? Or is it all DeSoto folks?
No. When we come in there, all the command staff that are involved in this exercise, such as myself, Assistant Chief Chase, our police department, whoever is available, all go into that vehicle.
They're all in there?
Yes, sir.
Good.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
We also conducted a shelter-in-place exercise down with our at the Duncanville Fieldhouse with our Metro Safe summer camp. We had a group of children in there, and they didn't know much about sheltering and exercise in place. We also showed them how the egress to the exits if they needed to evacuate the building. And Tanya and myself, we thought that was a very good exercise to try to knock down some of the chaos with these kids if there was some type of emergency. We also held an active shooter tabletop exercise with Laurenwood Nursing and Rehab. It was a very good exercise to evaluate their plan that they have provided, and what we did was just basically facilitate their plan and made sure that it worked to the way it was supposed to work. Then we had a big exercise, what they call the Bar X full-scale exercise, what is a North Central Texas boat assisted rescue. We had that out at Joe Pool, and they actually had 50 victims that we went and rescued from the lake at different points, simulating a flood. And we had several cities come down and work with us on this, so we got experience in our command staff on learning how to deal with a flood in this area. Some of the cities, we had Mansfield, Garland, Louisville were some of the cities in Cedar Hill that participated in this exercise. Our total calls for service in that third quarter was 1,766. Draw attention to our EMS calls for service. There was 1,313. And then we did inspections that we completed, our priority inspections. We did 79 during that quarter. And if you have any questions.
Mr. Harvey?
Chief,
I saw a grin on your face.
Yeah, I just remembered when you were talking about the water rescue at Joe Pool Lake. I remember that taking place. But the question I wanted to ask you all, are you all still considered exemplary in terms of life-saving, in terms of your response?
We're always exemplary. I'm not sure what the numbers are. I haven't talked with my EMS division chief on what those numbers are, but I'm sure we're right up there at the top. We were receiving awards from American Heart Association, and we got several of them up the wall, so I'm sure we're still doing a good job.
Because at one time, I seem to recall Charlton Methodist recognized Duncanville EMS.
That's correct. That was from our STEMI awards that we brought patients over there for STEMI. And they recognized us for that too. Yes, sir.
Thank you very much, Chief.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay, at this time, we will recess City Council, and we will move to the briefing room into executive session. So the timestamp on the recess is 9:36. We will adjourn the City Council meeting from the briefing room for everybody's information. So, council, please move to the briefing room. Okay, we are preparing to convene into executive session. City Council, this is item 1 on our agenda for executive session. The City Council shall convene into closed executive session pursuant to section 551.074 of the Texas Government Code, personnel matters to deliberate the appointment, employment, evaluation, reassignment, duties, discipline, or dismissal of a public officer, to wit, the city manager. And the timestamp is 9:46. Okay, action to be taken. Action to be taken as a result of executive session is that the Duncanville City Council is going to have a workshop at the Dallas Executive Airport, 23rd of August, beginning at 4 o'clock.
And we will get it posted in accordance
And it will
with the
be
Texas
posted
Open.
in accordance with the Open Meetings Act.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
And we do know where Addison is.
Adjourned.
Oh, and we, City Council is adjourned at 10:53.
Thank you.